welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Maximum Gravy, Austin Whitsitt, John Kays, DL Hill, Julian Jeremiah, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Airy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
8.
He didn't even say he was having a show yet.
Right. Yeah, as a punishment, you have to donate €5 to my PayPal now.
That's so.
Because you're late. Just kidding.
Nobody watching this knows I'm late.
That's true.
Unless everybody in chat says that. And I speak up about it during the live show. Right. Anyway, I'll see you.
Okay.
I'll see you in the panel.
See you in there. Hello, 10th. Hello, John.
Oh, Elijah.
Hello.
Morning.
Morning. I'll let a few more people in before I go live.
You sound like you're having
Again?
the same morning I am.
Yo.
No, I went to a picnic.
Yeah, and I went to my boys for wrestling last night. Super tired.
I was going off in Discord a little earlier about the radius value. I'm really wanting that measurement that they say they have.
Yeah, they don't have it.
Yeah, it seems unreasonable to even try to debate if you can't measure it.
What are you talking about? You went to the movie theater. What's the wrestling game?
In between then, at some point, I ended up in Gym Pandas.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below this video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by John, 10th Man, Neil, Eli, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good
Hello,
morning.
hello.
Good morning. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good
How are
morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Good to have you all.
Yay.
Hello, hello. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Nope.
Gonna need off
Can't
that.
measure it.
Gonna need half of that.
Can't measure it. It's,
I overheard half a
If you can't
conversation
measure
about
it,
you
it's not
still
real.
wanting to acquire that, John.
yeah, like you should be able to measure this physical thing they're claiming. If you can't measure it, it's not real.
Well, you could measure it, it's just not a sphere.
No, you can't.
Measure a arbitrary radius of what, Arwin?
Oh, a radius, right. No. No, but you can measure the Earth, you can still measure what's out there, right? It's just, as soon as you try to measure it as if it were a sphere, that's when you run into problems. Geometric problems, black swan problems.
What about the geometric considerations they talk about?
Well, if you want to consider that you have a sphere geometry beneath your feet, then that's perfectly within your rights to do so.
Nah.
Yeah. Far be it for me to tell you that you're not allowed to reify the ground beneath your feet into a curved Earth. You can if you want to. It doesn't mean it is, but you can if you want to. I mean, you can imagine the world as a roast chicken if you choose to.
Right.
Brian said something the other day when he was talking about putting a protractor on a basketball, and it's just like, I mean, what is it going to take for people to realize that it's an impossibility to be on a spinning water ball and have cities and buildings and bridges and all these things that we build on and live in?
Willingness is what it requires. And until then, the economy for geometric considerations is pretty high because there's plenty of supply and there's plenty of demand for it.
Well, it's the religious
Thanks to
faith of the
Hollywood.
time, isn't it? This is our current religious belief. The one world religion is heliocentrism.
So the $53 million a day NASA gets is just a tithing.
Basically, yeah, you could call it a tiding.
That was a good one, John. Guys.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You give tithes to your priests. Well, the priests of your religion, the current sky religion, is heliocentrism. That is the current sky religion. So give generously via your tax dollars and pounds and rupees or whatever else you've got as your currency, euros. Nobody wants the Australian dollars. Only joking.
Right. So they definitely fill up the supply part for the geometric consideration economy. Right? The supply part is definitely filled.
Supply
What
as
do you
in...
think the average salary is of an astronaut?
I don't know. Why?
I'm just, in the movies, when they're depicted in the movies, it's like they're real successful. They got a lot of money. I'm just wondering what their salary is.
What, are you thinking of applying or what? Need the hours as well? Holidays, maybe?
No, but they're highly educated to be an astronaut. No, can't be a dummy.
No, they just need to lie real well.
I don't know what the criteria is. We're not privy to that information. We just know what the end result is, right? So there might be a whole rigmarole that you've got to go through in terms of their way of brainwashing you into not realising that you're lying through your back teeth. I mean, I've heard that postulated by people before, and you're like, well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they are MK Ultra'd or brainwashed in the more figurative, more literal than figurative way. You just don't know. What I do know is they're lying through their back teeth. There is no sky vacuum. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Three containers.
3 containers?
Yeah.
Try again, maybe. Any evidence
Does
you
what?
can have gas pressure without a container? Let alone 3.
Well, what if you consider one container getting rid of the other container? So, like, you got a container on both sides. You can go ahead and mark that off and just say no container.
So a bit like if you break someone's leg running over them accidentally with your car, and you just go, it's all right. If you come and run over my leg, everything will be equal and everything will be okay again. Right?
Exactly.
Can we have this drive without any broken legs? Well, we can, or we could have 2 broken legs. Yeah, without a container means without any broken legs. Not 2 broken legs cancelling out. That doesn't work. 2 containers doesn't make no container.
There's only one way to think you can do that, and it is by assuming you're not in a container despite knowledge of natural law.
Michio Kaku quote from Jules Lutz says, in cosmology, we are off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. Michio Kaku. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Classic.
Well, they never hide the fact that they tell us every day that they're lying.
Well, the whole thing about
experiment was-
insanely large, the whole thing about astronomical sized numbers is that once it just surpasses a certain scale, it doesn't really matter anymore to the general public how much it is off, because it is all so far outside of reach. Like, 1 infinity or 2 infinity, it doesn't really matter anymore, right?
Can't have 1 infinity, it's just infinity.
I know.
What experiment was Michio Kaku talking about?
He didn't actually specifically say that. He just alluded to it to make it sound like that they've got experimental data and this mathematics disagrees with the experimental data. You know, makes it seem like, wow, isn't that salacious? Wow, off by that much, eh? Off compared to the experiment, eh? That then just useful to brainwash you into belief that they've actually got some sort of scientific experiment. I mean, I assume that Jules has been watching Jeranism because he's recently been putting out a whole bunch of stuff about this. One video specifically with quotes, including that quote from Michio Kaku and Richard Feynman. If it disagrees with the experiment, it's wrong. Like, yeah. What experiment have you got? Let's have a look what we're agreeing with first. And everything they have would be to say that it's in a disagreement with the experiment because there is no experiment. What's it to be in agreement with if there isn't anything?
Right. They don't know whether it disagrees with experiment because they never tried it, because you can't.
Well, it's like saying, let's discuss an aspect of Narnia discuss it as being true, and then after the fact say, well, if the time dilation through the wardrobe disagrees with experiment, then it's wrong. You're like, well, what do you mean if going through the wardrobe disagrees with experiment? What experiment? How is this in any way experimentally valid? It's just a story. Story of travelling to a far-off land no one else can go to, called space. I mean Narnia.
I'd like to see Feynman say that the way you just said it. If going out of the wardrobe disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. Ooh.
It's more the mathematics of the time dilation, which we can argue about all day long, right? And before long, before you know it, you've reified time dilation through wardrobe transition into physical existence, like it's something that you need to concern yourself with in everyday life. And then you move on to, well, let's ascribe some sort of force to the time dilation occurrence. You know, why not? It's like all only occurring in the mathematics. It's taking place in a world that we're never going to travel to because it doesn't exist. We just won't tell you that. We just pretend Narnia is real and we go there all the time. Now give us money to go back. Oh, we went back, but it was really expensive to build up that technology now. Obviously, it's going to cost considerably more in modern times to go back. Last time we went to Narnia, you know, all you needed was a pair of snow boots and, you know, a fur coat. These days, it's much more complicated than that. You need a lot more than just a fur coat. You need fully tested suits.
Well, there's this movie called Deja Vu, and that's what they do. But they explain how Einstein's theory of bending space-time and all of that nonsense with a little piece of paper, how they fold it in half and you can go right through, and they make it seem so easy that you could just time travel.
Yeah, you just wrap the universe around a wormhole and travel between the two sides of the wormhole, and Bob's your uncle, you've gone through some fold in space-time to a different period. I mean, how difficult can it be, Neil?
Hold on, wormholes are not about space-time. That's only space. It's pure spatiality. It doesn't actually. It is not taking place in pseudo-Riemannian force space.
Wormholes, yeah, they are. Wormholes taking place in pseudo-Riemannian force space, and they would connect two different parts of space and time, potentially giving you a shortcut between the two.
Really? And time? I've never heard that and time, though.
Yeah. Obviously, geometrically
yeah, they say
and
the
physically,
wormhole.
in the heliocentric model, if you're in a different part of space-time and you travel to that different part, in the same way as if you could bend space and time round upon itself to reach parts that you could see in the distant future, or distant past, sorry, like the CMB, well then if you've curved the universe up upon itself, obviously this is all taking place in the theoretical world of pseudo-Riemannian force space, then all you'd need is something to connect those two as they're folded under each other, right? Well, what do you need?
No.
Well, you need a wormhole.
I'm afraid you got it wrong, Nathan. I think you've mistaken the concept of a wormhole, which is really a space-only theoretical physics phenomenon, for the distortion of the space-time continuum, in which actual time displacement is also said to take place through the Star Trek universe conception. But that's very different.
Well, no. Black holes use time. Black holes use time for volume. They're infinitely dense without volume. They're like a point, an event in space-time.
Yeah, but they distort the time, but they don't take it out of whack. You don't end up in another time by going to a black hole. It's simply supposed to condense the actual time, basically making you stuck, but it doesn't like switch you off to another timeline. That only happens for space-time continuum distortion.
Fine.
It's all make-believe anyway.
No, I'll buy that. That sounds familiar. It's been, 20 years since I looked at this, Arwin, so I'll buy that. That sounds like the kind of bullshit I read at the time. So if you say so.
Well done.
The Rosen Bridge would be what would connect those 2 points, right? But the black hole, it's still within space-time because it's affecting time.
So they say.
So maybe you need a combination of both. You need a combination of black and white holes working in conjunction with each other. So you've got time being sucked out of the universe by a black hole, and then it being returned by the white hole, and then Bob's your uncle, you've travelled through time. There you go. I could pattern that.
But the thing is about a white hole is it's white. If there was a white hole, you would see it because space is black.
Yeah, but it'd be...
Listen, Denzel Washington went back in time 4 days, stopped the terrorists from bombing a boat, and saved the girl's life at the same time. So it's true.
Okie dokie. Let's just do another shout out to Jules Luds again. Thank you very much for the super chat. Says, I would argue Michu is by a factor of 10 to the infinity. Shout out to Made by Jim Bob. Shout out to Made by Jim Bob. Thank you for the super chat, Jules.
Right. Neil was talking about the Tenet universe. That's also different because in that universe, they suggest basically that an individual spirit can be switched to a railroad in which the normal timeline is experienced in reverse. Which is kind of unique, really, except for they did it in Red Dwarf, too.
Yeah, it's all bullcrap.
Well, that's how Merlin experienced existence, wasn't it? In the story, King Arthur's tales.
Sort of.
Well,
It wouldn't surprise me. Most
no,
stories
he
are
aged in
recycled.
reverse.
Most stories
He
are
aged in reverse.
most
Can I
stories.
get a sound check?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm sure Armin can hear me saying the same thing 3 times. Most stories are recycled. There's very little new under the sun in that regard. Now there's silence, of course.
Well, you missed my good pun about Merlin and what John said.
About a fish.
No, I said sort of.
Sort of.
Sort of.
King Arthur and Merlin. He said Merlin did something, and I said, yeah, sort of.
I see. Very good. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Thank the Lady of the Lake, 10th man.
What is the sun?
Don't know.
And I want an answer now.
Don't know. Sorry.
It's over there, Neil.
I'd love to give you an answer. I'd love to be capable, but I don't have it, Neil, I'm afraid.
Well, then I'm just gonna have to believe what they tell me. Then it's a ball of hydrogen, right? Something
No.
like that.
No, it's just 3 times the distance of a rainbow. That's it. You're gonna have to do it with that.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, that's a joke too. But the funny thing is, if you can't give certain people an answer, then they're just gonna tell you straight out. Then until you give me an answer, I'm gonna go with and this is what they say. I'm gonna go with what the scientists tell me.
To use the mathematics associated with gravity, we would first need to measure a radius.
That's correct. Can't have G without R.
But if gravity wasn't real, then why do the special trajectory calculating computers have to calculate carefully the pathway for a ship to go to light speed through, or they would crash, right?
You
What's
see how much
happening again?
fuel that the Saturn V rockets, you see their fuel tanks, Arwin? Of course. We went to the moon because of the size of fuel tanks, right?
Where was the journey?
Oh yeah.
The journey took place where now?
Over there.
In an area where gas could occupy.
Yeah, but the moon is within Earth's atmosphere, so it is now technically possible. Oh wait, I said atmosphere, didn't I?
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
How much were they off again?
10 to the minus 120th or something like that. Scroll up to that super chat again.
No,
A
they
lot,
weren't off by
Armin, but it's
negative,
just
Nathan.
maths. 10 to the 120th.
Yep.
A lot.
Well, if you're that far off, then how are you going to do an experiment?
What, in maths? What's the phenomena?
Light you see in the distance, and based on presuppositions of the Earth being a globe, having a certain radius, that everything does have a certain distance in relation to it?
Call that a phenomena?
No. uh,
And wouldn't a single zero being added to a number, taking 1 to 10, would make it inaccurate? And thereby, if they can add 120 zeros, and they think that going from 1 to 1 followed by 120 is still acceptable, I
Well,
can't even
you'd
wrap my head
say-
around it.
At some point, if you're going to be that far off with theorizing about distances in this presumed galaxy, like, why wouldn't they just actually measure a distance somewhere and finally get rid of these misunderstood sized up distances? Like, why don't they just measure it and get it on with?
Because the only measurements we
Ballers
have
are-
are flat.
No, because it doesn't actually exist out there. There's nothing to measure. It's all just lights with no actual position, no actual distance, just angular relations, and that's it.
The ballers have been claiming that they bounced radio signals off the sun and thereby have measured distance to sun.
Yeah, they also claim it's a black body, don't they?
How? Did anybody explain
Well,
how that mechanically worked?
It
I can
didn't.
post
Anybody
something,
at
but
all?
just in Discord.
Didn't. Can't get a radar bounce off a black body. That's what they claim it is.
They have the unique ability of measuring things they never could see.
Make
But
it up.
isn't that the whole point of a black body, is that you can't detect it because everything bounces off it?
Right.
So
Oh,
that's
I
like saying,
got it.
oh, we just finally measured and sized up a piece of dark matter.
Hold on, I got
But
this
the
one.
entire point is that you can't measure it.
Go on, John.
Just like an isolated system or an ideal gas, there is no true black body.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying that they could probably sell that
Oh, I see. Oh, you were pitching
bullshit.
that. Yeah, that could work.
That's racist.
That
Like-
self-identified black body.
Don't oppress the sun. If it wants to identify as a black body, it can.
Whoa.
So it claimed that it was 1960 and they did a radar echo from the sun. 1960 was about the same time as they were doing moon bounce and ionospheric bounce. So once again, how can we know with certainty it was bouncing off the sun besides all the black body stuff that you just described?
Quick shout out again to Jules Lutz, who says in a massive 159.99 super chat, in empirical science, we require an experiment, hypothesis, independent variable, dependent variable, null and controlled systematic variation of the independent variable to determine causal representation of the hypothesis. Period. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jules Lutz. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. What did we cover? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
You missed a super chat before that.
Did I?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, so I did. 10th man's puns are like space. Out of this world, says Al Junkie. Thank you very much for the super chat also.
That would be a universally accepted truth.
Universal law of 10th man puns. Thank you
He's
very
gonna
much.
start a pandemic.
Pandemic, love it. Did we cover it all? Is that all housekeeping?
Yeah, but
hold on. Now we
But
go.
Armin took a jab at me. Do I get a chance to respond?
Oh, here we go. That was a good
But you're
one.
already resistant, so
Okay, enough puns. Right, I'm going to do a couple of shout-outs. So, from the chat, somebody says that Rob Skeever's ill. Did anybody know that? If you are, get well soon, Rob. Hope you're okay.
dude, everybody's spamming it all over the chats.
Rob, keep it sick.
Say again?
Yeah, apparently he went to a conference. It was a little heavy, and then he got sick afterward. Kind of like the time that I went to the Amsterdam conference, and then right after, even predicted beforehand, like I'm going to get sick because it's just very tense and exciting, and so he
Was it?
probably got sick.
Was tippy your seat stuff.
It was for me.
Okay.
Meeting all these flat earthers face to face for the very first time, you know?
A couple of other shout outs. Because over the weekend, I found out that there is not just one, get this, 2 apps that allow you to press the flesh as a flat earther. Now, I was unaware of either of them, and there's been a bit of a, let's just say, friendly competitive banter between the two, because they're obviously competitors. So one's obviously trying to gather as many people into their app as the other, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. Go from nothing like this to having, admittedly one of them's incorporated into another app. By the same token, it's still part of the app. So I'm going to shout out both of them. So there's the Flat Earth People Finder, which is completely free. So it's several thousand users strong already. And it's a completely free application. So go and download it today. Check it out. Flat Earth People Finder. As far as I'm aware, it's available on Android and iOS for free. So at the very least, you can download that and see it in your local area. Very, very cool app. Also, DITRH has his sort of all-encompassing app. It does quite a few different things. And it's called the Sun, Moon... Oh, sorry, I'll start that again. Flat Earth, Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app. Bit of a mouthful. But over the last few days, they have also launched a similar application. So part of that particular app is now, you can go into it, click on it, I did this, and see who's around your local area. I was absolutely shocked how many people were on there. Like, local. It's like, wow, there's people around me that have obviously gone to the extent of paying, I think it was £2.50, not a great deal of money, to download the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app. So yeah, check it out. There's two really cool apps that have just emerged out of nowhere in the last few days. Well, not in the last few days. I've been made aware of them in the last few days. I'm sure they've been in development for a very long period of time and gathering up their audience. But as a direct result of I'm not going to mention who, but one of the two moaning about the other one, I came across them. So I'll just say this: there's no such thing as bad publicity, because if it wasn't for that little, "Oi, I've got that app. What are you doing with my app? I developed that app," sort of thing that was going on. But it's like, from an outside point of view, you're like, yeah, that might be annoying. But if you're going to set up a new chip shop, new restaurant, where's the best place to set it up? Next door to the one that already exists with a customer base. That's where. That's something that will drive more people to the chip shop. I've seen it happen, actually. But aside from chip shop examples, that's what you've got to do. You don't set it up in somewhere that's got absolutely no custom or business for chips. You set it where people know to go for chips. That makes sense. So both competition breeds success, and this is no different. So the fact that there are two now technically competing apps out there trying to bring people together, I think that is something to be celebrated. I think it's absolutely glorious, and my hat is off to both of those people for making those apps. So shout out to both of you. The YouTuber, just one more thing before I round this out. Obviously, DITRH, many people will be aware of Dave Weiss, so if you're not, check out DITRH, go and download his app. But also, Flathead Politics, who is the app developer for Flat Earth People Finder. So check him out as well. Again, I didn't know he existed as a YouTuber, which isn't surprising given that we receive basically no promotion, cross-pollination or anything else from YouTube. So not a shock in that regard. Hence me constantly saying, please share the show. Very, very important that you do so. Because that's the only way that anybody will ever come to watch this show. If you personally, I'm talking to you, if I had the camera on, pointing at you in the audience, share the show. And in that respect, although it was a little bit of bad blood that got me to that particular YouTuber, I subscribed and downloaded apps as a result of it. So no such thing as bad publicity, but still, share the show. I'm done.
Well, since there's a finder for flat earthers, somebody should make an app for anti-flat earthers because they have to be extremely lonely. And, you know, it's not like they're ballers anymore. So they need something themselves, right?
Oh, I see. So you could say, you know, you can come and meet Craig or Dan as an anti-flat earther. We are one. We are Borg.
Right. You know, there's probably a market for that. And since they're willing to throw away $53 million a day, you know, I'm sure they'll pay good for it if anybody wants to do it.
Let us know in the comments if you're interested in developing an anti-flat earth app to unite people like Simon, Dan and Craig. Then, you know, you just let me know if that's something that's of interest to you. You know, meeting others that want to sit around and moan about me. Shout out to Retro Bill. He says, just wondering who is responsible for making 2021 the year of the sextant. Massive kudos to that ace bloke. I think that was Eli, was it not?
I think it was the Black Swan.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Eli.
10th being humble over there.
It was the Black Swan.
10th man dubbed this the year of the sextant very early into 2021. And he made a point of saying it early in 2021. 2020 was the year of the Black Swan. 2021 will be the year of the sextant. The sextant demolishes the sphere and proves it's flat. And he's right. So 10th man was that man, Retro Bill. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat.
Inspired by
What have I done?
What was that? Who was that? Eli, I was just using
Eli.
you as a joke. It was asked who
Okay.
dubbed it the year of the sextant, and I said it was you.
How rude.
I would say that
Did 10th ever?
tangent lines, and that they have to be horizontal lines, straight lines. Got people thinking about the whole sextant. So I'd give you credit, Nathan.
Apparently,
Did
Jules
10th man
Lutz,
ever?
sorry, just 1 sec, says, I got kicked out of a flat earth chat for asking if the lockdowns are pushing you over the edge. Laughy face. I don't know if that's true or sarcastic, but I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. You've been uber generous today, Jules Lutz. Don't know if you had a big windfall, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you very much.
Did 10th man ever consolidate all of his sextant presentations into one, or is it still kind of just a lot of information?
I've got it all condensed in one slide I just sent to Nathan in Master B. So Nathan, if you want to show the one slide.
One slide? You joking?
Yeah, it's in one slide.
One slide.
It's really
Please
easy.
post in Discord.
Yes, I have seen this actually. It is a good slide.
Yeah, you need when you travel roads to get to places, there's a Highway 180, straight line.
Love it. So this is your position, admittedly depicted at the horizon, but you'd be measuring out from this position to the GP of this star, or sun in this example, with 90 degrees below the GP of that star, or at the GP of that star, meeting at 90 degrees to travel out from your position to that point on the ground. It must be flat for this to work. You can't acquire a 90-degree angle from a curved surface. This cannot and does not work on a sphere. Excellent. Good slide.
Yeah, I was thinking about how to make it simpler, and I said, you know what? the thought just came into my mind. Put these images together.
Cool. I wonder if anybody will download the Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, or the Flat Earth Friend Finder app, or Flat Earth People Finder, I should say, to give it its correct app name. Nice.
Did someone in Master B post this in Discord?
The picture of the protractor.
The summary photo of tents.
S'il sent qu'il était pareil, il me le dira. Au goût, à l'odeur.
Oh, okay, I won't take you off mute. Aquila. Got your mic wide open. About to pop you on server mute. See if this person's paying the slightest bit of attention.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Good to have you.
Yeah, I'm just coming to the stream for listening to you. I'm from France, so my English is not the best, but I like your work, and I want to thank you just for all your stuff you're doing there. So thank you, and I just listen, guys.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Hello, Adam, by the way.
Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness. Running a bit late today.
Yeah, me too.
Too lovely a day here. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I went out to a picnic. It was lovely. Well,
summer's back.
I say that. It wasn't lovely because I went to Coventry, which is a shithole.
Oh, it is. You've been very generous today, Nathan.
Generous to who?
Coventry, frankly, that's more than a kind description of Coventry.
Yeah. We were trying to find a car park around the Memorial Park, and they'd closed all major car parks around it and all ancillary car parks around it. So essentially, there's a park surrounded by main roads that you can't park anywhere near. Literally. But there we go. That was the fun that was travelling to Coventry today. We eventually got there. Very exciting stuff. I can see you're all totally riveted.
I caught a bit on the way home. Literally just as coming in there, you were chatting about the apps. I'm going to go and have a little nosy at that. I'll download those and see who's around me in Nottingham.
Hey, Nathan, I provided the one picture that describes the globe model in Master B to contrast with the one I put in.
Okay, it's up. This does actually have some provenance in the respect that this is actually used depictorially to claim how a sextant works on a sphere. This is literally an artist's rendition of how they say it works on a sphere. We're not even joking. I don't know who came up with this, but it's a bloody embarrassment, this one.
I really like it, though.
Someone defending a sphere actually made this, like, seriously?
Yeah, to explain triangulation on a sphere. Yes, this is one of the diagrams used to explain triangulation on a sphere. That's correct.
That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, triangulation on a sphere is a dumb thing to assert, because it's impossible. Here's why, but this is what they used to show how it was possible, believe it or not.
There was a scene in Billy Madison where the guy that was questioning the two at the end of it said, you know, everyone is now dumber for having heard what you said. I think everyone is a little bit dumber for have seen that picture.
I would agree.
I wouldn't say, to be fair, I mean, if I was trying to produce a diagram that just showed how ridiculous the claim of being able to use this trick on a ball is, that's the kind of diagram I've come up with. I wouldn't be chuffed if I was obviously trying to make a point that you can do this on a ball, but certainly for Thames purposes, I think they've produced them a fantastic slide that shows the ridiculousness of their claims.
But Adam, I didn't produce the slide. It was an actual navigation.
No, he gets that.
Done it for you, Temp. You know, to show, save you having to show with a slide of your own how ridiculous it is to try and match up what they're claiming to reality as if you were on a ball and be able to measure these things. They've demonstrated how muppety it is for you.
It's the pictorial example of QE saying, just let them open their mouths and they'll do all the hard work for you. Just let them write it down or show you a picture of it like this and they'll do all the hard work for you.
That's correct.
It's an embarrassment. I mean, it is truly embarrassing to assert a sphere belief these days. As far as I can tell, if you are here, if you are listening to this show right now, I don't care which side of the fence you are, you must appreciate how ludicrous it is to assert that you're on a sphere. Or share your pain. Obviously, you know, there's people who would say, no, you know, this is perfectly acceptable. It isn't. It doesn't work.
I just posted the full video on Master B, the link to it. So if anyone doesn't appreciate the work they've done for us, you can go watch the whole video.
Yeah, I'll pop it up in context and just scrub through it just so people can see that we're not actually lying, that this is genuinely part of a Globehead's description of how triangulation works. Let's just get the ad. Here we go. Using a sextant. How do you use the sextant to measure celestial altitudes of heavenly bodies? And the timestamp for this is here. There you go. That's him showing how it works. 1 minute 36. I'll even share the video. It's in the chat if you want to check it out. If you want to let him know that his video helped you convert to flat earth, that would be equally great. Don't troll him or her. Steering mariners. Very good.
Well, he's not alone. They all say this. He just happened to put a nice image on it because they're all saying this. They have that local horizon of theirs. They have that local tangent plane. They carry their flat earth wherever they need to get it right, and then they dispose of it when they go back to their religion of heliocentrism.
I know they're all saying it, Tim, but and often when they say it confidently, quickly, with lots of maths thrown in there, you kind of miss the point of what their claim is. But kindly, because they've done that picture, you can't miss the point of what they're claiming the maths they're doing is. And that picture just demonstrates that none of it has got anything to do with the maths they're about to claim or use. The picture demonstrates in defiance of the maths they're stating.
And why is it, Adam, that so-called smart people can't see the obvious contradiction?
My dad always used to say to me, he says, you got tons of brains, lad, but no common sense. That's often the case with the academic, isn't it?
So when you're force-fed indoctrination and you're just parroting things that you've learned through school and you've never been critical to understand why they say something is that the outcome then? You just put up a picture and say, see, there it is, but you have no common sense?
Yeah, sometimes it takes something as simple as instead of, like I say, the complicated mathematical description, which can intimidate and make you not necessarily see the obvious, just look at the numbers, not necessarily what the numbers are representing, and you can look at the numbers and check the numbers out, and the numbers are okay. Yeah, all looks very intelligent and academic. Actually, when simple things sometimes show you the ridiculousness of what the maths is supposedly dealing with, and that picture demonstrates that the reality and the measurements we're taking do not and cannot fit. You're going to be measuring it on a ball. It just exemplifies it for me. It's that common sense bit. The common sense is looking at the picture and realizing that none of that is commensurate with each other, is it anymore? Oh, I missed the pencil.
But yes, I think you're right in your summary, 10th. you blinkered to stuff if you've been indoctrinated with it. It may seem like common sense, but if everyone around you is in agreement, if you're in an actual cult, which I would say heliocentrism is, it's just people are well unaware of it, and it's probably the case in any other cult. The people in it don't think they're in a cult. They think everyone else is weird. Well, if you actually take that person aside and explain how they're in a cult, there's a good chance that they'll brace against what you're telling them as being false, even if you've got good, strong evidence to prove it, because they're brainwashed, indoctrinated, living that lie, and it's very difficult to let go of that. So people are good. People are good at processing things cognitively, and this sort of thing is the end result. In your mind, you say, "Well, yeah, that's all right. That's fine, because we're on a sphere and it must work. It does work." And then later go on to explain how it actually is functioning without acquiring the 90 degrees. So having an arc that won't give you this square box that's depicted. Again, this person's drawn up this diagram and gone, yeah, that makes sense. Like, so 3,000 miles, this is to Brian's logic's point, if it's curving up, then the area of land that you're actually utilising isn't in the position that it could be when triangulated with an actual 90-degree box, as in this diagram. It's like this depiction not only won't give you the 90 degree, but if you just measured the horizon and assumed it, but you did have the curved surface, when you plotted out your position, it would change that position, because this line is no longer straight. So it's showing on the diagram below, you've got a radius line to the GP, 3,000 miles. It's like, well, that's straight. It must be if it's a radius. That's what a radius is. But it isn't. Look, it's in the diagram bent. So is it bent or is it straight? Well, it must be straight, because you've got this box to show and prove that it's straight. It's 90 degrees to it. Does this look like 90 degrees, ladies and gentlemen? No, it's batshit insane and crazy, and definitely not matching this 90-degree claim, because you've got a curve here. But again, like I say, cognitively, whoever's drawn this out has gone, yeah, that makes sense, because I am on a sphere. Like, no, it doesn't. Where'd you get your 90?
The following slide is the one that Adam made a point of with Al-Biruni. He didn't make a mistake.
You want to talk through this one, Adam? A height of
The
90.
following, the next slide I put up after that.
Oh yeah, you've got there the maths, the geometry behind how Al-Biruni supposedly calculated the height of the mountain that he was going to go to the top of and measure his dip angle from. But the reality issue when you're drawing the geometry on there, if you look at it where the right angle is, that's the height you're trying to measure. Now, unless you're able to drill down from the top of your mountain all the way down to the base, you can't measure that height directly, because you can't get to the center of the bottom of the mountain. So what he's done is use trigonometry to basically calculate that length d, which is measurable, and from there you can use corresponding angles in the trig to work out h. This is correct geometry. It's correct trig. The trouble is when you try to apply that to reality, d for them is curved. And this is a very small example. I think Al-Biruni's was a lot bigger because he's dealing with a bigger mountain. So d's got to be miles and miles in length. You to be able to look up at the mountain, draw an angle, and take it from the two places. But that d in the diagram and in geometry is a straight line. Unfortunately for Al, his fundamentals of his claim is that the Earth's surface is curved. Therefore, his fundamental principle of trying to calculate the height based on geometry of his mountain is based on false mathematics. First of all, because his bottom line is curved. Unlike what he's claiming on there, on that red one, you can see that's the line he's measuring, but underneath that the Earth's curving away. Therefore, the line he measures has nothing to do with his supposed surface of his Earth.
So he had to assume and deal with Earth as flat to first acquire the height of the mountain, to then claim he can measure dip angle to the geometric horizon to derive R. So he starts off with a flat plane, so he can measure it and assume it as spherical.
Oh, the irony.
Well, isn't that what Ranty Flat Earth did with his straw man about angular size? He got the angular sizes from a flat plane and then put them back in orthographic view to claim that there was a dip.
That's correct.
They got one trick.
That's
one
correct.
Trick.
It's got a name. We called it Mong Trig.
Trigonometry, isn't it?
Well, this is just a variation of that, isn't it? Like what they're trying to claim.
Well, theirs is a little bit more peaky, isn't it? I don't think when I look at Alberuni, he's intentionally trying to deceive. He's just got, it's paradoxical, isn't it? Again, yeah, he's got no other choice than to take it as flat. Otherwise, he's got nowhere to start. He's got nowhere. He has to make that assumption first, even though he knows it's wrong. Because if he doesn't, he'd need R in the first place to work out the rate of curve to give that distance any rate of curve, so he can measure it in real world. But unless he's already got R, he can't figure out how much it curves to adjust his angle for in the first place to calculate what his rate of curve is.
Yeah, it's paradoxical before he's even begun because he has to get the height off a flat plane. Earth's flat. Alberuni knew it when he measured the height of the mountain. The fact that he then went up the mountain and went on to presuppose that the horizon was a physical geometric sphere edge that he could measure a dip to doesn't alter the fact that the first measurement he took was on a flat plane. It's embarrassing, really. You'd think somebody would have realised that in the story. Oh yeah, he's measuring dip angle to get R. But first he measures it flat to get the height. That's alright. That don't matter, no one will notice. We didn't notice till Adam noticed.
Well, it is embarrassing, isn't it? Like, because we're all at one point in time were heliocentrists. Like, it is an embarrassing religion when you step outside of it and look back at it.
Right out there for this week's shows. So, why is Alberuni measuring the height of the mountain on a flat plane? I doubt there's anybody in Discord with an answer to that right now, but I'm going to throw it out there. It's not going to become a housekeeping question, but I'd like to know if anybody's got an explanation for what is depicted on screen now in terms of how, using trig, you derive the height of the mountain to later measure dip angle to a physically assumed to be horizon that blocks things. Well, first you must measure the mountain's height, and that's done on a flat plane. So, globe believers, aka flat earthers, the people actually here watching this, Alberuni knew it was flat. It must have been for him to get the height of the mountain. What's your explanation? What have you got to say for this? It's embarrassing, right?
It's flat.
It is flat. I'm watching the chat go by. You're here now, anti-flat earthers in the chat. There's several of you. What's going on? Alberuni's measuring Earth as flat to get the height of the mountain. Fact. So Alberuni knows it's flat. That's how he makes the starting point of his measurements to make your sphere assumption that you all lean on. Yeah, he might have made the sphere assumption, but he started his maths flat, didn't he? So who's going to comment on this? Has anybody got anything to say about this? Alberuni's measuring the Earth flat. That's a fact.
They're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
That's why I'm going to bang this drum all week. Alberuni's measuring Earth as flat. You say he's the one that gives you your R value, you can get dip angle measurements. Really? Not unless you assume it's flat first. Yeah, you can assume Earth's a sphere, you can presuppose whatever you like. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you can presuppose it's a roast chicken. But if you're going to actually take any measurements, you've got to start with it being flat, because that's how it is. To then later just assume it's a spherical surface after measuring it flat to begin with, which is precisely what Alberuni has done. Isn't it mad? Alberuni knew it was flat, just like we do.
Because
There's
it
a
was a while
slide.
to spot it, Temp, didn't it? But I think the reason it took so long is it was never intended to be released or even notice that information until the year of the sextant, and it has lovely synergy with the sextant. It's
I got another slide up there, Nathan. It's a WikiHow, and this kind of corresponds with the Al-Biruni.
Is it the one with alt equals 40 degrees at the top?
It says WikiHow, WIKIHOW at the top.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Correct for dip to account for your distance above sea level. Dip refers to the difference between your elevation and the actual level of the horizon. The actual level of the horizon. Love the language. To make this correction, multiply 1.7725 minutes by the square root of your elevation, including the height of your eye in meters. Subtract this number from your observed altitude, the reading you got on the sextant when you measured the elevation of an object.
Very good.
And if you continue on the slideshow,
hey,
you see S1 and then below S1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Yeah, well, if you read this, from this, a navigator knows he is on a specific circle along the plane of the surface of Earth, of radius r, known as the line of position, LOP. He does not know his direction from this point. However, by examining a second star, a second radius can be deduced. The navigator now knows he is at one of the points where both of the circular functions meet. In the case that there is only one real route, he knows his position, although this is only possible if the radii are parallel. Look at those 3-star sightings with 3 different circle of equal altitudes, covering thousands of miles. And where they all cross is the fix. And see the 90-degree symbol there, the box. That box kills the globe Earth. And that box is needed for navigation over the oceans of thousands of miles, a flat. Or you can't put that box there. There's your right angle. There's your triangulation. Next slide.
Okay.
But you ballers are going to get fooled by this because you're saying, oh, okay, that circle of equal altitude with the box, that makes everything flat. See, there it is on the globe. See, 3,000 miles of curved denoted by a box. Something should go off in your brain. This slide is not real. The distances are real. The flat level surface it needs is real. But your brain is asleep. Wake up, ballers. It's the year of the sextant.
Perfect. I think that's probably going to be my opportunity to ask anybody who is watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams to stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Massive shout out to Unitoxphone, who smashed the super chat just as I started doing this outro. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
Something embarrassing about believing you live on a sphere before you hear this information. But if you keep on believing it afterwards. That, I think, is the embarrassment. You know, when you don't know what you don't know. But like when you hear the information and you refuse to process it, there's something wrong with that.
I would agree that covers some of the people, but the other group, and there's probably more than this group, but the other group that I run into is full of pride. It's not that the information is seen for the first time contrasted with a belief system that they thought was real. That never shows up in reality, by the way. But for a lot of these people, it's just pride. Pride kicks in like, I can't admit that I've been wrong all these years. Well, you're not. You were told a lie. Now that you see the truth, where are you going to go? What's your decision now? Now that the facts are laid bare in front of you, what are you going to do? Well, pride keeps a lot of those people still in there, right? And they say stupid things and then become anti-flat earthers.
Bit of an odd pace to today's live show, without there being a pre-show warm-up.
Well, do we have anyone in Discord? Is it full?
Yeah. Nice and full.
All right. Well, is there any ballers in Discord? Or anti-flat earthers in Discord?
Ballers, come out to play, eh?
Not that, I just want a specific answer. Al-Biruni had to measure Earth as flat before he assumed it was a sphere. So, has anybody got any response to that?
I'll give a response from our side. It is reported Al-Biruni used an astrolabe. The astrolabe is predecessor of the sextant. Both those instruments can't measure curve. Both those instruments force a measurement of flat. So that's why it's impossible, because it's an angle measurement device. What's that?
An astrolabe proves it even more, because the clever thing about an astrolabe is you do all those sextanty measurements, but then on the reverse side of the dish, you've got your planisphere of your star map, and it allows you to do calculations based on trig. You line each thing up. It's years since I looked into this, because I built one out of paper to try and do. Where is it? But they're really they're a sextant, but so much more, because it then incorporates into, and it will do the calculations for you that you would often have had charts for in later times. The astrolabe kind of has the charts contained within the disc, and the way you lay it out, it will give you a lot of the basic information from that. But again, it's playing a trig it's based on, and the way in which the device works.
Well, both those instruments only work off a flat surface. So when someone says, we measured it, what'd you use? No, sorry, it works on a flat surface. Well, how'd you measure? Sex? No, it only works on a flat surface. It's Highway 180. It's
Take that as a no. Nobody's going to comment on Al-Biruni then.
Well, we've muted them so they can't defend it. That's what it's got to be, right? They're not being allowed to defend it. That has to be the answer.
Maybe. I'm just surprised there's no reaction to it, right? There's nobody saying, well, no, his measurement did actually assume a sphere when he measured it flat to get the height of the mountain. You just don't understand how he assumed it was a sphere first. Let me explain it to you.
the reason I think there's no reaction is there can't be, because all the other reactions were to something they could kind of, stretch a little bit and massage it and say, well, it could mean this and it could mean that. And how do you know he didn't mean this? But when it comes to what Al-Biruni did with an astrolabe and what the sextant does in modern day, it requires angles. You can't have an angle without that baseline being 180 all the way. That's why sextant is set to 0 degrees, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Everything's in 0 mode before you start. And even before that, you got to calibrate it to get to 0. And if your sextant's damaged, it's either going to do a plus error or a minus error. And when you go to your final calculations, you have to account for that error to be precise. And so when you do the dip correction from, say, 15, 16 feet of the sailboat that you're standing on, you're bringing it down to that baseline. So they have an exact straight line to that GP, which later you find out the bearing of it by using azimuth, coming from the north in a clockwise motion. Now you got your bearing. I mean, it's over for these people. And I think that's why they can't handle the sextant or Al-Biruni's astrolabe, because it's flat to begin with. And the tool can only work on flat.
That's correct. Although I have to say that before, let's say 5 years ago, the sextant wouldn't have been too much of a problem, because in general, flat earthers didn't really know what they had with it, right? Now that you've figured it out to the detail with the angles, exactly how it mechanically works, now it's a problem. Now they don't like it anymore. Before they could just say, yeah, people that believed in the globe used this to get around the sphere Earth during this exploration. But now they know how it actually mechanically works because we know how it mechanically works. Now they don't like it anymore. Hello?
Called the show Al-Biruni Knows It's Flat.
So no R, and we measure it flat. Can't be a globe. Can't be a globe.
I don't think Al-Biruni actually believed the Earth to be a globe. I think he just did a test according to his studying peers. Just like, okay, measure the horizon and bring back the data. I don't think he ever actually thought he was measuring a sphere, really.
Well, there's a whole show on the BBC with that English guy who's got a Middle Eastern background. He's one of these scientists or whatever he goes by. Have you all seen that with the Al-Biruni story? And he goes to the actual place. He goes into the library there and they pull out the book and ancient writings. And then he goes to the mountain, actually, and he's got this huge astrolabe. Anybody see that show?
It does ring a bell, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they replay the whole thing. And it's just like, even goes down below and does what Adam says, measures from the sea level all the way to the mountain. That's where I first saw that. It didn't connect with me then. I saw it, but it didn't connect with me there until the Black Swan came. I'm telling you, the Black Swan gave birth to this. So if someone wants to know how the sextant argument came about, it came about of the Black Swan, because when QE made it clear what that meant, I said, oh my gosh, I know a little bit about boating, and I know that they use a sextant, and I'm going to do a deep dive. I think I know what I'm going to find out at the end. And that's how the sextant argument came about. But it wasn't until then. I mean, who was going to give me the clue prior to that? Something triggered something else.
Can you tell us?
Well, that's a summary statement. It was when I was talking to QE, the horizon, like we always were talking about why a few feet of a boat is, missing. And they said Earth curve. And we were always talking about objects. that would have disappearance from the bottom up. And we knew it was optical. We knew it was perspective. But when the black swan came out, the horizon is their Earth curve. You have to judge everything to that. That's where it starts for them. So anything missing prior to the horizon, which they don't have, except optically, but the horizon and the R can be no more than 1.22 times the observer's height, as we know the modus tollens says. So it's like, okay, so now we have a physical location at different observer heights where the curve must start, but it could be no further than. Well, that just woke everybody up. Forget looking at things in front of the horizon. Where's the horizon? Is the horizon past the geometric limitations of a radius of 3959? That's what got the whole ball rolling right there.
It's what got the ball flat, you mean?
Good one.
Yeah, all the hints were all laid out there, and we all just needed to stumble upon each puzzle piece, and then, yeah, at some point it was always going to be inevitable that we would have all the puzzle pieces and we would start puzzling it together. And guess what? Hey, this fits and that fits, and the entire thing now suddenly fits. Where before it was just kind of like interesting hints, right? And now it fits. And now we just look how well it fits and how unbelievably not well the globe model fits. How it is broken at every turn. How it is deviating from reality at every corner.
Prior to the black swan and the physical geometric limitations that it poses for the ballers, at the 1 foot observer height or the 5 foot observer, it doesn't matter what observer height, it's still going to throw away their ball. We were on the math, 8 inches per mile square. Well, 8 inches per mile square is still the math for their curvature, but this black swan just made that very colorful. It made 8 inches per mile square turn into, okay, well, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, every horizon distance can be no further than. When that language that QE put there can be no further than, that just turned that 8 inches per mile square into the black swan horizon argument. And it's just, that's when the light went off.
Yep. Oh, look, suddenly there's logical consequences to specific claims. Oh, you don't want to be held to task on the actual consequences of what you think is real? Well, too bad. Because we will.
Well, I think the black swan makes me think that there's people that just don't understand.
Did they have the upper hand in like the Isle of Man debates?
The most sought after item that they want to misunderstand. And so they'll say anything they can make up, as in ridiculous statements about it, like, oh, look, but here's a white swan. But, oh, look, we debunked the black swan. Oh, look, the black swan is inconsequential. Just anything but actually addressing the in context argument.
A bunch of property.
I'm traveling. Can anybody hear me, or did I lose you?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I asked, before the black swan, did they have the upper hand when you were discussing the Isle of Man and the mountains in the distance, or whatever was in the distance? How much was missing?
No, they didn't have the upper hand, but they still had a hand in the game to play. But they definitely did not have the upper hand. They were already getting caught regularly in basically making mistakes, creating haze and misunderstandings as to their point of view, etc. So they were already getting caught in machinations, right? We figured out the perspective hijacking curvature calculator. We figured that out before we realized the black swan. So we already were winning.
Right, because that's what I can remember. I remember them getting hammered even back then without the black swan.
Right, the black swan was just the death blow, was the final nail in the coffin.
Prior to the black swan, though, there was a measurement that was being claimed that of curvature. You know, after the black swan, they pretty much threw that measurement away when they refracted the horizon.
Well, they still do all that, except now they know it's kind of hopeless. They're just doing it to delude themselves, right? Instead of gaslighting us, they now spend most of their time gaslighting themselves. So they can keep believing what they thought had to be true. Where is everybody?
I don't know. I think everybody's contemplating how dead the globe is right now.
It's the moment of silence, Arvin. It's not bad at all.
Right. I'm talking out loud at a funeral. I get it.
Kind of what it feels like, doesn't it?
Well, as you know what they say, first you die the physical death, and the second death is when everybody's forgotten all about you. So I think that the globe will still live on for quite a while before it will reach its final second death. But it's definitely going to get humiliated along the way.
I think it's already there. It's you got these holdouts, but they're all insane. I'm mad. Like,
yeah. So
that's
how's
that's
that different from any other period in history and people's beliefs?
The only difference is that we have a show that they used to come on all the time. Now they're not coming. Technology brings the people in the world much closer. So I mean, yeah, it happened in history throughout all history. But it's like when can you? I mean, you're over there where you are. I'm here in California. There's people all over the world listening to the show. That's a new thing in comparative to history of how people communicated these things. So when we bring the topic up and we have the housekeeping questions, it pretty much puts a laser focus on key things. If we were a globe, these questions need to be answered, but they can't be answered. So we're not a globe. I mean, it's just nice, concise, to the point.
Damn, I forgot my story today. I'm saving it for tomorrow.
Why, Neil? It's kind of quiet now.
Well, because when I was on my way home from work the other day, I'm talking to the guy that I'm doing work for at the moment, and we were talking about that freak storm that hit, that tornado that I somehow missed. When I got home, I found out about it. But people actually drowned in elevators in New York. I mean, it was a quick 3.5 inches of rain in an hour. Yeah.
In New York?
Yeah.
Yes, in New York. Subways are flooded. It was bad.
Oh, shit, the subways, yeah.
As I'm talking to him about it, he said something about, how the water pulls to gravity. And I said, his name is Dragon. I said, Dragon, you are talking to a...
You're breaking up, Neil.
I watched a video by a guy called Super Speedster Rob, and this guy does high-value exotic car rentals. And basically, if it had been the case that the cars that had got destroyed by this flood were...
The horizon is...
Oh, right.
So...
Neil. So the flood that he experienced, same area, was basically all of his own cars. So all of the rental cars were out being used. And if it was them, you'd be like, well, they're just rentals, right? You just write them off by insurance and then replace them with new ones to rent out again. But that wasn't the case. All of the stuff that was in his garage was all his and the employees' cars. So one of the employees had just bought a GT3 RS, and he's got like an NSX and a 360, a Ferrari. But they're like their own cars, the ones that they've obviously spent ludicrous amounts of money on to keep them on the road when they shouldn't be. You know, those sorts of things. Exotic old cars, or in the one case, a really brand spanking new car. But they were flooded. Like all the electronics have been shagged, all the carpets are shagged. You know, some of these cars were like carbon fibre, and they've got a little drain hole, so the water just went straight into all of these cars. And I was watching it. I'm a big car fan. I was just heartbroken watching it. Like I say, if it was the Lamborghinis and the Rolls Royces that he rented, I wouldn't have cared. You're like, yeah, they're just rental cars. They're just normal. Yeah, they're exotic, but they're just normal cars. Unlike their cars, their own cars. When you see them get destroyed, you're like, oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's like their wives.
Well, yeah, precisely. His NSX that he's had for a long time, he's put money into, and it's his pride and joy. He got a Supra that he'd put like 1,000 horsepower into it. Now, is it worth something because of it? I don't know, it might be in the current car climate, but my point is that it's not really worth what all the mods are worth if it gets wrecked by rain. It's a labour of love that you want to keep on the road, not because you want to write it off and get a fraction of its value back, because that's just silly. But there we go. It's just heartbreaking when it's cars. What do you say? Someone drowned? Oh, yeah, but the Ferrari.
No, when somebody drowns, it's also terrible, especially if you actually know them.
Did you hear me? It was a Ferrari.
It's just a chunk of plastic, dude, with an engine in
it. What? How dare you?
You know how
say Ferrari,
you can crash a Ferrari? You know how easily they crash? And then when you do
I don't think
it,
he did.
Totally splatters apart.
I don't think he heard me say it, Adam.
Ferrari,
Arwin. Aren't you listening?
You gotta say Enzo.
Dude,
Maybe he gets Enzo.
I've rode in a Pontiac. They're just way more awesome.
Maybe you should spell Ferrari for him. Maybe that's the problem.
Well, Ferrari does have a lot of R's in it.
very good. The fair. Fair, we know all.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming, right, Neil?
I think I'd take the point you were making. I think you got an old school NSX, and I think Americans are probably more inclined to mod their cars, aren't they, than the Brits. If you've got an old school one like that, it's not going to be worth anything, is it? Really, when it's knackered, you're not going to get out for it. But you'll have. It's not so much the money, is it? It's the number of hours you've spent polishing that bit and hoovering your carpet and
chemical influences from the rain and shit. Yeah, that is just terrible. Right?
I mean, the years of love you've spent on it on a Sunday afternoon, just to see it get shitted up like that would be. This is not the money.
That's exactly how I saw it. I could see it written all over his face because, this is a guy dealing with people who write off multi-$100,000 cars in his fleet. Occasionally he has to deal with that crap. Now, does he get upset or emotional about it? Obviously, it's irritating in business. But no, he doesn't. Often he'll just make a video about it, and that'll be, that's how his company runs. But it was written all over his face when he was looking at his NSX and looking at his Ferrari and saying, but it's my Ferrari. You could tell that he's put his love and his heart and his soul into that car. And it's not because it's the £300,000 Lamborghini or the Rolls Royce that he's got in his fleet that would literally be much easier to replace.
All right, maybe there's something special about a Ferrari.
It's any car. It's the difference between, let's say, I literally rent a Lamborghini. So his Lamborghini, I rent it and park it, and I rent it for a prolonged period, say 6 months. Then it gets flooded. Do I care? No. Not in the slightest. Because it's not mine, it's just a rental. Likewise, if you're the person who owns that rental and is renting it out, it's the same, it's just a rental. But my car, the car that I got with Patreon funds for 850 quid, and then poured 12 months of sweat and blood into it, yeah, that's not a posh car, but if it was broken or written off, I'd be like, now I've got to buy another crap car and put a load of time and effort and hard work into it. Now imagine that times 1,000 when it's something that's actually valuable and actually nice. Very different story.
Right, I get it. It's like a crown jewel. It's like it's all the work you put into it. And it being in its perfected state, having to put so much work in it. I think I get it. It's just my cars, and even like my bike, I'm always like, no. Just if it has a bit of rust, it's actually good because that means people won't get the idea in their head to try and steal it. But that's been my tactic, really.
Fair enough.
I kept my Porsche for a year, Owen, even though I knew it was knackered. Yeah, kept it on the drive, still clear. Yeah, just didn't want to get rid of it. So I was going to spend more money on the next car than that was worth, but it didn't matter. Yeah, there was kind of. My wife was laughing at me, it was the clutch had gone. I'd already placed a gearbox, replaced the crankshaft on it. You know what I mean? It wasn't worth a thing, but I just didn't want to get rid. Really didn't. And I was kind of happy in the end when it went to somebody that was going to piss money away on it like I was.
Yeah, I get it.
Keep it going.
That's called true love, right?
Yeah.
When you break up, then at least let their next boyfriend be a good guy that actually loves her, right? I get it.
And now I've got a little French mistress hairdresser for a car now.
What have you got now?
Yeah.
What do you drive now?
An RCZ.
What's an RCZ?
It's Peugeot's equivalent of a TT. It's the
Oh,
one with the
right.
Batman
I love
roof.
that. It's got the bubble butt roof. That's awesome. I love that car.
Yeah.
Which engine
Special
did you
red
get?
leather, magnetic special edition one, is it?
200 horsepower then, so you got the decent engine.
Yeah, it's like shit off a stick. It's lovely. Good
Yeah.
fun. More
Nice,
fun
very
round.
nice,
Like
very
with the
pretty.
TT, it's fun round corners, Nathan.
Yeah, it's because it's light. It's just a TT rip-off. It's only about 1,200 kilos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it.
Car Earth debates.
There's nobody fundy muting us, so why not? I don't mind talking about cars all day. It's the after
It's
show, right?
fine.
We had a good live show. It was a bit strange in tempo, but other than that, we covered all the bases, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't matter if once in a while we deviate from script on an after show. Who cares?
Well,
On the earlier show, I was talking about music like half of the time. Like, oh, this song, oh, that song. And just once that gets going, it's just like, okay, I don't know how to stop this anymore.
There are times in the Flat Earth discussion where the bigger contenders, and at the moment it's Jaren, take up a bit of the slack. And it means we can rest on our laurels a little bit. So at the moment, Jaren's putting in the time and effort and work to expose Flat Earth and globe lies. You think, great. Let's talk about cars. Go watch Jaren for a bit.
I have a tragic car story. It's my old car that I actually inherited from my mother, so it has a history. But I'm still like, that was like a drama story because I literally had to bring it to the trashers. Basically, I didn't see it get crushed or anything, but I had to like put it away, even though it was still functioning. And now there's a car I put in a lot of money and a lot of effort to keep it going because the basics of it were always functioning well. And it was like the engine was like awesome. It's like this small car with this badass engine and for its size, just naturally, and automatic gear. And I'd love it because no matter how old that thing got, I was always able to accelerate people in their expensive cars. I would always accelerate past them when the flash or the traffic lights go green because it was a badass little car with a lot of maintenance, but I just couldn't afford it anymore. That was really
you know
who else
has got that story, Arwin?
Hmm?
Everyone.
Screw you. But mine is special.
My
Yeah,
favourite
mine was
little
the summer
mower like that I had was a a Mitsubishi FTO.
Oh, very nice. You've got good taste in cars.
Oh, it was beautiful, mate. It was because of the Tiptronic, and it was an import from Japan. So it was only registered over here as a Mitsubishi Colt on the paperwork. So, but that died on me. I killed that as well. The gearbox went, and again, you see, heart over head again. I still end up spending more than the car was worth just to get the gearbox fixed to sell it again. I should have just scrapped it. Do you know what I mean? But she was beautiful, beautiful.
Sorry about a GTA. That's much more interesting because I can picture that car and it's pretty.
FTO. I didn't get a big boy GTO.
FTO. Mitsubishi. I know what you've got. Very curvy, bubbly looking car. Yeah. Very pretty.
I mean, back then it was just the prettiest car I'd ever seen because it was just. 90s,
I agree.
Isn't it?
That ushered in 2000 styling. Yeah, good looking car.
Has anybody here ever had a DeLorean?
No, obviously not.
All right, yeah, because then you wouldn't be wasting our time here. We'd just go time traveling, right?
Don't think
everybody wanted one.
It was a ridiculous car, but it was just so futuristic, you know.
Yeah, and a pile of crap as well. With a Renault engine in it.
Yeah, but it just looked so futuristic. Get that feeling of Buck Rogers, you know?
Yeah. Ferrari looks with Ford Fiesta performance.
That's why you have to get one fitted with the flux capacitor, otherwise they're shit.
Yeah, man.
All right, I just put the picture of my first and only muscle car. I don't have it anymore. It's a Master B.
Lost my mouse.
Wow, that is a gorgeous car, 10th.
Where is it? It Master B?
Yeah, this isn't a picture of the car I had, but it was the same car.
That is pretty.
Yeah, that's a beautiful.
Dodge Charger,
yeah?
Yeah, Dodge Charger. I was under 5 feet tall. I got my license.
Did you say it had a 454 in it?
I can't remember all those things, but here's what I do remember. We had to put a block of wood on the gas pedal and the brake pedal for me to reach it.
I thought you were about to say I had to put a block of wood on the gas pedal to send it over the edge of the cliff because we couldn't afford it and wanted the insurance money.
No, so what happened was it was I bought it for $800 and it was so powerful. So every time I stopped at a red light, of course everybody wanted to race, and so this thing just was so fast. The minute I pushed the gas pedal, the rubbers were just blowing smoke in the back. I mean, it was just you would go through tires crazy on that car. And in 1976, I sold it for. I bought it for $800. I sold it for $1,200, and I bought the first short bed Toyota truck, 1976, brand new.
Cool.
So before they cobbled them all and the fuel emergencies and all the rest of it. So you were capable of fueling it and not concerning yourself with the 4 to 7 miles per gallon you got because fuel was cheap. No. And then you sold it just before they were basically worthless because no one wanted a big V8.
That's right. Yeah, that gas was cheap back then. In the 60s, gas was as low as 18 cents a gallon.
Right, but
I remember that.
The engine must have been just overpowered, like more drag than grip by the tires type of shit, right?
The tires couldn't keep up with the engine. I had the wrong tires on it, I think. But man, it was just faster than. It was scary for a little kid who just got his license, but I enjoyed every minute of it.
Right, because the force of the engine will just almost contort the car apart.
It's a good,
right?
Almost.
It's so strong.
It's very heavy. It's a good 2.5 tons, but it's probably got 350 horsepower. So it's going to be quick, especially once it's moving. But realistically, Adam's car's probably faster.
Yeah.
My car was probably faster.
Probably. What was your car, Arwin?
A Citroën Saxo.
A Citroën Saxo?
Automatic.
No, your Saxo was
liters.
definitely not faster than this Charger.
Wait, was for the first few seconds with the traffic light.
While the Charger was burning rubber and spitting smoke on everyone else, yes, you'd be getting away, but very quickly you'd be in his rearview mirror.
But those few seconds,
Yeah, I love it.
And besides,
Great
there's
car.
going to be a traffic light after like 500 meters anyway. This is the Netherlands.
I'm not a big Mopar fan, but I appreciate a big V8. Awesome.
What miles per gallon were you getting out of that, Tom? 'Cause
4.
I was going to say, you threw a
We never thought that way back then. Gas was cheap. I never thought miles per gallon.
Used to kill me, the Porsche, Nathan. It was. If I got 12 miles per gallon out of it, I was doing well.
Do you know what I used to get out of my S5 Repmobile? 7. It was absolutely horrendous. I couldn't make it to work. So work was 150 miles away, and I couldn't get there on a full tank.
You know,
With
that
me-
NASA V.
My little car was really fun like that because it all depended on like how deeply I would push the gas pedal, because it could be like super efficient, like what is it, 50 miles per liter or something. I don't even, a gallon is like 8 liters, right? But just very efficient. But if I'd like go push it down, it would like guzzle like 8 times that amount, but it would also just like push you forward like a maniac. So it all depended on how you would drive it.
Of course.
That NASA vehicle that moves the space phalluses, I heard it gets 12 gallons a foot.
He uses 12 gallons per foot. Yeah, that sounds about
What?
right, considering how highly geared it would be, right, to move it at that rate and how heavy they claim. That said, I mean, what they scooched down the actual runway, I don't think that's what they launch.
Are you serious? 12 gallons a foot? Like, where would that volume go?
That's
That's not
claim.
actually.
And
That's
it's
not
all
actually.
going-
That's not that exceptional. So there are plenty of military vehicles that are measured that way. So it's how many, you might get half a mile per gallon, and then it starts, the measurement structure changes because they're so heavy.
Yeah, a mammoth tank, perhaps, but like regular a moon buggy?
This thing's
What
carrying
kind
a
of
giant
vehicle?
dick, Arwin. I mean, come on.
Oh, the thing that was carrying the rockets and shit. Yeah.
So
Okay,
at Cape
yeah,
Canaveral,
those are
they've
like
got
tanks.
they've got 2 warehouses at Cape Canaveral, haven't they? They've got one that's supposed to be the biggest building in the world, and it's got its own bloody atmosphere or something crazy. And that's where they build the rocket, or they built the Saturn V. And it's like just this enormous warehouse. But they had to wheel it out from the warehouse to the launch site. Well, I've seen Richard Hammond standing at the bottom of it next to one of the wheels, and it's like 20 times bigger than him. One wheel.
The reason they say that building has its own atmosphere is because that building's the only one in the world with airtight security.
Now, but they have to be airtight because they're constructing a balloon, right? A rocket-powered balloon. They probably have to test it, inflate it at some point, see if there's any leaks and shit. And
Yeah, I don't think they actually launched that, though. So one of the very first videos I made was about a transitional shot where they showed, it wasn't that, it was actually the shuttle. But they had it with various different things that you could scale it. And people even standing close enough by to get a reasonable amount of scale. And I estimate that it was a half-scale model, as opposed to the full size that they claimed it was, something like 150 feet. I think they said for the shuttle, and it looked like about half that, if that.
are you really? They took a half a size scale model, and really did it live, and
No,
people wouldn't
that's what I'm
notice?
saying. That's what I'm saying. You see, get launched. I'm saying that they don't launch people in giant firecrackers. I think they just launch a model, basically a bloody great big firework.
All right, but what I'm more surprised about is suggestion that it's not actually fully to scale.
No, I don't think it is.
That would be the weird part.
No, I don't think it is. I think the whole smoke and mirrors show with a lot of the SpaceX, although I keep far less abreast of what's going on with them than I used to do with stuff back in the day. I think that's the same. I'm pretty sure, again, referencing Jaren, he's shown various different things that I've looked at and I've gone, that looks like they've put it out at that distance to make it look bigger. If you ever look at how they get the effect of the Disney Magic Kingdom castle, the tower looks like it's an enormous tower, but they've just positioned it in a way that you can't get an angle on it to see how they've got this actually very small thing just positioned in a way that makes it look big. Well, that's all they do.
You just blew my mind. I never even considered that they would just downscale it and just trust on people not taking notice of it because of the distance. And then later they could, of course, present the supposed to-scale model. Like, so you could actually get up close and be all impressed about how big it was. That's really devious.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I'm just going on what I saw of the footage when I was actually interested in it before I realised that space was entirely fake. Whatever they launch up, whatever that, what I'm calling a model is, it's irrelevant. It's not going to a sky vacuum, is it?
No, of course not. But like we're used to from television and all that, yeah, of course they're going to use models in movies and all that, and they're not going to be to scale. That's fine because it's just a camera. But to actually use not to scale models in real live events, that's something else. That is like, I never even thought of that before this.
Well, like I say, it was one of the very first videos I produced. So I actually produced it, put it up on YouTube, and didn't publish it because I was too scared, if I'm ruthlessly honest. And then I was in a Globebusters chat when it was on Jarenism's channel, and there was Smokescreen Design and other people who were on the panel at the time, and I just happened to be in their chat, and I mentioned that I'd made a video, and they're like, well, where is it? Give us the link. I'm like, I haven't published it. In fact, I'm probably going to delete it. And they're like, no. And lots of people in that chat encouraged me to actually publish it, so I did, and sent them the link. And it was exactly this video that I'm talking about now. I think it was actually the first video I made about this subject.
I must have missed it then.
I'll send it you. I'll send you a link, Arwin.
Cool.
Me with a lot more hair.
What?
Me with a lot more hair.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was thinking the way that everyone is broken down, the way they fake space and, the tricks they use. I was wondering, like, go to a flat Earth conference and just get a bunch of flat earthers to create a fake flat Earth space agency and do all the same tricks that NASA does, just so the ballers get mad and call us out, and then, like, by proxy call out NASA.
I see. So parallel the techniques used by them so that the anti-flat earthers can call out the fakery we've used to fake space and go, yeah, it's the same technique your overlords used to fake space to you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just a kind of it's got a name. Can't think of what you call it, but yeah.
It's called green screen, blue screen.
He's talking about the technique. Cheating in a way that your opponent's cheating, so that your opponent calls you out on the cheating that they're actually using.
Tricking them with their own tricks.
Well, it's the equivalent of being in a card game and grabbing your opponent's sleeve, shaking it violently so that all the cards fall out, and as you do so, all the cards fall out your own sleeve.
Adam Meakin.
Mr. Eraser.
Get stuffed!
Did you have a good time, mate?
Yeah, I had a wonderful time. How's it going, boys?
Dude, where was your ball busters? Like, there was not even a premiere. What happened?
Was?
It was. I didn't get a notification.
You're doing Mitchell's.
Share the show.
What? What's going on?
Did you have to share the show? People will see the Black Swan from Australia video that QE put in, and they'll go, "Oh, I don't need to share that," and they don't, so no one watches it. If we don't get our videos shared, they don't get watched.
But I'm subscribed with a bell notification. I didn't see anything from Quantum
Well, that means
Eraser
anything.
this Saturday.
I don't even
ballbusters.
encourage people to press the bell anymore. I don't think I ever did, because I don't think it ever worked for Flat Earth, ever.
Yeah,
There wasn't a Ballbusters anyway, so you didn't miss anything.
I knew it.
Yeah, I told you I was going on vacation.
We never gave you permission to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So, what's been going on for the past 7 days? I need a briefing.
I thought you'd join to talk cars with us. We've
No.
been discussing our favourite previous motors.
Obviously,
The Ballers have run.
you're already aware of the Mitchell from Australia, Australian Black Swan, right?
Yep.
Also, are you aware of the Alberuni necessity for a flat plane to derive the height of the mountain?
Yes.
Are you aware that it's the year of the sextant?
Yes.
You're all cut up.
That it?
That's it.
Are you aware ballers don't turn up anymore because they have no argument?
No, but yeah, well, I've been aware of that for a long time.
I think you're up to date then.
Anti-flat Earth? What about anti-flat Earth? Was that being discussed before you went on holiday?
Yes.
That's it then. You're all up to date.
Well, thank you. Good enough.
Actually, I know. Before you went away, America was the leading power in the world.
Who is it now?
I
China.
have no idea. It's not you lot, though, anymore. I think it might be the Taliban.
Let me get a tissue.
You're not disappointed that your heliocentric overlords aren't running the show anymore?
I think he has actually gone for tissues.
I heard that Branson was grounded because there was something wrong with his original launch.
Oh, really? That's how they spun out the narrative. Oh, we'll have to forget about it for another 5 years then.
Yeah, that crossed my mind too.
Well, while we're speaking about it, I've started a GoFundMe to send a flat earther to a second law of thermodynamics violation. So as soon as they can do that, and then I'll make sure somebody gets to go.
I think Nathan's volunteered himself already, hasn't he?
No, I put myself down for Narnia.
I think if one of us like
What's the difference?
to go in a vomit comet, or one of the Bezos flying phallus or whatever, I don't think I'd turn it down. I don't think I'm going into a second law violation. I don't think I'm going into space as they carefully mitigate and legally describe the adventure I'll have. You know what I mean? But I'd still do it if that opportunity was there, I think.
Would you? See, I recently made a video off the back of Brian pointing out inertia issues with gas having weight. And in that video, I took somebody who's describing themselves as being weightless. And as I was making it, I was thinking, because this isn't appealing to a part of my brain that now tells me that there's a sky vacuum and infinite area to travel through, potential endless possibilities with new worlds and aliens and all that crap, because I haven't got that in my mind anymore, nothing about the Vomit Comet actually has any appeal anymore. In the same way that when I take my kids to the theme park and they go on Peppa Pig Land or whatever, I have absolutely no desire to go on the things that I went on when I was a kid, i.e. the roller coasters. It doesn't appeal to me anymore. It just doesn't hold any interest. I've done it, I've been on them all. I'm sure there's a few new ones I haven't, but ultimately it doesn't really hold much interest. Likewise, I see the Vomit Comet as just a fairground attraction. It's not simulating a presupposition of an orbital path falling around Earth perpetually so you're floating, because that's not a possibility. So what is it? Well, it's a bit of brainwashing to convince you that that is something that could occur, 0G, when they convince you that falling is actually ascribable as 0, when you're in movement, whereas being completely stationary, not moving a smegging inch is 1G. You're like, this is us about face makes no sense. But if you're living in that paradigm, I can totally understand the appeal. And back in the day, I'm sure I, had that desire as well. I'd love to get on the Vomit Comet and see what it'd be like to be in space. Well, the to be in space bit's not there anymore. What possible desire could I have for it?
No,
the answer is very limited.
I'm with you there. In that sense, in terms of what it would be like to be in space, no. What it'd be like to weightless like that, cool. Because you know what I mean? That's an experience I'd like, but not to reify or pretend I'm a spaceman anymore. But I think the bit that would be interested in is kind of what you described, sitting at the back of planes. Actually, suddenly I'm going up that much higher. And then when somebody says, well, have you been there? Yes, I have. And I've seen how flat it is. It's kind of not just these pictures from balloons that show how flat it is, but I've been and I've seen. And that's what I'd like. You know what I mean? That would be my... But it's not in that space paradigm anymore. It is literally with my observable reality. If I had that opportunity to be that lucky, I'd take the chance.
I mean, I get that too. Something I'm gonna have to pretty much parrot the same thing again. But when I was on commercial airliners, trekking all over the place, my desire was to do exactly that: go higher in my mind to see the curve of the Earth, because I was under the understanding that you couldn't see it from an airliner, even though you could see the horizon. That's just part of the trick, right?
Yeah.
Neil
Well,
deGrasse-
converse, I'd want to
Neil
go
deGrasse
higher to see
Tyson.
the horizon push further. If you
Well, it sounds like Nathan's only interested in more hang time, because the only thing he said he wants is the Narnia experience.
Well, the description of that Picard guy, where he said it seems a flat disc with upturned edge. Do you think the upturned edge part of that was because of the shape of his windows?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Be right back.
It's very simple. You have a circle with the limited the circle of view, the limitation of view. It's a circle. If there's going to be any upturned apparent edges, it's going to be because of lensing. Because it is pretty bland. It's just a circle. Beyond the circle, you don't see anything anymore. There's no warping, upturning, anything, unless that specific trait is caused by the medium you're looking through. Has to be.
Yeah, it's like when they say they see Earth curve from a plane, and then they land the plane, and they still see Earth curve while they're landed.
Once you start to see Earth curve, you can never let go again.
Well, the Halo jumpers would know.
I actually spoke to one, and he said it looked flat, but he could see the curve. So it was like both positions.
What did he say?
You're breaking up, John.
He said, "Well, He said it looked flat, but he could see the curve. So I don't even know what that means.
Horizon.
Like he said both.
Yeah, horizon.
It looked flat, but you could still see the curve.
You could still see the horizon, right? So regardless of how the land appears, he can see the horizon. And in his mind, the horizon is Earth curve.
Vanishing
Yeah, that
point.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes
The
sense.
vanishing point where things vanish is the curve in their mind.
Yeah, this only dawned on me because it seems so obvious to me, but it takes somebody else to say, oh yeah, of course. But I think it was Righteous Force a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about the horizon from high altitude in the exact same vein with the black swan and everything, like we do when we're talking about pictures from the ground. It was like, so the horizon up high isn't Earth curve either. I'm like, it's the same horizon. Why would it be any more Earth curve, physical geometric sphere edge obstruction to things in the distance when you're up high, if it isn't geometric obstruction down low? It's the same horizon.
I'm one person removed away who heard a halo jumper say, "Be careful what you ask for."
What's the height?
Don't know that.
Well, it can't be much greater than, commercial flight, right?
Correct. It would have to be under 40,000 probably. But the question was posed, what do you see up there? Answer was, why do you ask? I can't say what the next thing he said. And the answer was, be careful what you ask for. So I don't know, John, who you were talking to, but I got a story that came back with be careful what you ask for.
Which John?
Other John.
The other John who said the Halo guy said something else.
He's got to change his name.
Yeah, John's not common enough.
You can go beat John.
Right, just talk amongst yourselves.
John QE and John D. Come on.
Gonna visit the John.
Yeah, so but I don't know the significance.
We need one of you to have an equally popular name. How about one of you's called Mohammed? That's a really popular name. Mohammed and John.
What?
Mohammed is quite a popular name, you realise.
I mean,
So what's the significance of Halo Jumper's opinion when you could see the same thing in a commercial flight?
Precisely.
It's just describing something special to something that you do, right?
It's the you're supposed to read between the lines.
it sounded like a veiled, not a threat. What's the word? But it sounded like, oh, careful what you wish for.
What?
That's reading between the lines, yes. Meaning they know.
Or I'll go and show you a picture of Earth curve. Well, go on then.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That's disappointing. I thought you meant he'd, parachute in under the radar and slit his throat or something.
That's what I assumed. He's being sarcastic because they've all been up there seeing it, and if you're not careful, he'll show you a picture of this thing from an altitude lower than stuff we've got pictures that show it flat.
Careful, I'll show you a picture of the horizon. Look, it's the horizon, take that!
Yeah.
No, Kiwi said it. Right. What's the difference between a commercial air flight and what we see and a Halo jumper? Nothing. It's the underlying message that he's not saying and the way he answered back, because they know.
But if the Earth was a radius of 3959, then even from a 1 foot observer height, we should be able to discern where that horizon is and where the curvature is. And as soon as we take the argument to 30,000 feet, then they say 80,000. And then you get to 80, and then they say 100. And then you get to 120, and then they say 200. So the argument about gaining height to then see the sphericity is sort of fallacious at the start, because it's implying that at some point you will then see the curve. But you should see it from ground level, even at a 1 foot observer height.
Yeah, it's the same as 8 inches per mile square. It's not realized, but it's said.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we only have one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric, and the horizon we actually experience is neither of those things, merely apparent location where the sky appears to meet the ground. Being redundant using it twice, but as they do, I will too.
Yeah, they want their horizon, but they don't. They want their geometric horizon, but they don't want the geometric consequences.
It's the horizon you wouldn't expect to see, Arwen.
Yep.
The apparent position that's not apparent. Is that what?
Yeah, well, every horizon by definition would be the apparent location where the sky meets the ground or sea. Well, if it's not apparent, i.e. you can't see it, then it's not a horizon. And that's precisely what they have for Earth curve. Their Earth curve is the geometric horizon, and it is not apparent. Or to put it another way, you cannot see Earth curve.
Apparent in this context means not actually. So
Visible. It's mostly about the visible part.
It's not. No, apparent doesn't mean, oh, it's apparent. I see it. No, apparent means in the context of Coriolis means not actual.
Yeah, well, it's the same in the horizon context. It's the not actual position where the sky meets the ground, because the sky doesn't actually meet the ground.
Right.
Derived from appears. Where it appears to me. It isn't where it meets, it's just where it appears to me optically. As with Coriolis, it appears to rotate. Doesn't mean it.
We're just juggling around the definition. So if you say where it appears to meet the ground, it's because it's where it appears to. Well, the apparent location or the location where it appears, they're the same thing.
In the Coriolis effect, it's apparent deflection, meaning not actual deflection.
Yeah, it just appears to deflect, but it doesn't actually.
Appearances are deceiving.
It appears to be the point of physical sky meeting physical land, but it's not actually. Just the point where it appears to meet, the apparent point.
It's also apparent based on height. So again, that's cleverly wound in nicely to the black swan argument in the modus tollens formulation. So that you're describing how and why the sphere-Earth horizon is apparent by defining it. If the Earth's a radius 3959 sphere, then the distance to horizon can be no more than, and then you lay out the maths based on its apparent nature, 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, i.e. that will vary where it appears. Meanwhile,
another truly hilarious thing is...
I was just going to say, meanwhile, it doesn't appear though, does it? We don't see it.
See, this is where theirs isn't apparent. It should appear, but it isn't an apparent place where the sky should meet. It's actually a physical location where the land should block view of the sky. So in their world, not ours, but in their description of what the horizon is, it's physical to them. It does have a physicality, so there will be a physical blockage to your view. So it is the point, it's not where it meets still, but it's the point of intersection where the physical blockage obstructs your continued view of the sky.
And as a direct consequence of that, I don't know who, I think it was Flat Earth Solar from the Discord server a moment ago said, well, when you get down lower, it should be at this particular height, right? 1.2 miles at 1 foot. Well, that would make it really obvious if you got down low. You got down low, and then suddenly the stuff that was 1.2 miles away suddenly disappeared completely from view. And it doesn't happen. You know, Anthony debunked that when he got the Isle of Man, the north end of the Isle of Man, on his belly at the beach. You know, he's lying down in the sand with his camera on a little sandy tripod that he's made. You couldn't get any lower. Can he still see the Isle of Man? Well, yeah, he can. But not so if you've got something that's 1.2 miles away that's physically obscuring your view. And that's what they claim Earth curve is. The physical obstruction at 1.2 miles that would obscure your view by Adam's description, right, Adam?
That's the difference to me. Ours can move, based on optics. Theirs can be no more than, because it is defined by an actual physicality. Ours isn't. Ours is all defined by optics, pretty much, height and other parameters, but there's no physicality. There's no real point of intersection. It's only the apparent point. But theirs it has a limit where the apparentness is confined to. You can't have more than 1.2 miles because there is actually something in the way that will create that apparent position from that point on, or should.
The irony being, what Adam's now detailing as something that doesn't exist and we don't experience and isn't apparent is the very thing 4 years ago at the start of the debate they were arguing as the proof of its apparent nature when it blocked things. So Adam's description is the same as their description when describing their begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Look out into this picture. look how we have this physical obstruction of things that are beyond this distance. It matches with our begging the question maths in orthographic view that ignores all optics and assumes an R-based physical obstruction at that point that matches this picture. Well, it's got to be a physical obstruction blocking things in the distance then. As soon as it isn't physically blocking things into the distance, it isn't a physical geometric sphere edge claimed to be Earth curve anymore. And that is precisely what the anti-flat earthers tell us. We wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. It's like, well, what about when you brought out the maths and told us that the horizon was Earth curve and calculated how much things were blocked by it? Just because we've debunked it, suddenly nobody's claiming that anymore, even though it's the very basis of your belief in a sphere Earth. Yeah, you are claiming the horizon's Earth curve. We've just debunked it.
So
No, man, they were only considering it. They were just considering it. That's all.
I'm pretty sure back when I believed it was a sphere, I would use a tangent to describe the horizon and draw a straight line to it, to describe it as something physical.
As you would when doing geometry.
Right. Like, that's why the black swan messed me up so bad. I knew you couldn't refract it. Like, R is a constant in that math.
The other truly hilarious thing that you'll hear, and a lot of people don't stop them, they'll say there's two or more horizons. One's the geometric, the other one's apparent, when they don't realize that the geometric horizon is also apparent. So they're talking nonsense, but I don't hear too many people correcting them. I just sit there and I'm beside myself. They let them keep going. It's as simple as that, right?
It is kind of dazzling when they suggest that the horizon can be refracted into a different position.
Well, I have an auto-type response to that for chat commenters that say precisely that. Oh, we've got a second horizon. It's the one you can't see, and words to that effect. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in your begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculator is geometric. We've only got one, and it's not geometric in reality. It's the end of the argument.
Well, aren't they still asserting it when they say if you got to get up high to see it? Like, they're going to still assert it, even though they deny it in the same, like, almost the same breath.
No,
well, they believe there is a condition in which you could somehow see the horizon in both an optical and geometric position, but
they might say that, but that's wrong.
It doesn't work.
No, because their refraction. This ties back to something that I figured out because of Chris Monk about 3 years ago. So everything you see, if you're on a sphere now, so if you're a globe believer or anti-flat earther and you genuinely think you're on a sphere Earth, then everything without exception that you look at isn't where it's supposed to be. Why? Well, because we have an atmosphere. Well, sphere-shaped air has light bending at a standard rate through it always. That's without exception. That means, in very literal terms, on a sphere Earth, nothing is where it's supposed to be as you look at it. And that is not limited to the stuff beyond the horizon. That includes the horizon. Which means that, by their own definition, paradoxically, they cannot acquire geometry ever because they've always got bent lines to everything always.
Yep.
That's right. And you need straight lines for geometry.
And triangulation.
And of course, that would render all the world's militaries impotent.
I was going to say, John, surely that explains now why snipers are so well paid. Not only Coriolis do they have to deal with, but the thing ain't even where they're aiming.
Yes. Yeah, did you catch on that? I figured that one out like a week ago. Like, wait, snipers, they don't even have to do horizontal alteration because of Coriolis effect, but also they have to aim slightly downwards because the things they're looking at are not in the place they're actually looking at. It's all refracted upwards according to the ball.
Does that make the first rule of military? Do not aim at the target.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, doesn't it, right? It's not where it's supposed to be, so you wouldn't. That would be the first rule if terrestrial refraction was true and we had an atmosphere. It isn't. What we need is, did anybody ever see Battlefield Friends? Anybody ever see that?
No.
Okay, Battlefield
Never.
Friends was like a little cartoon that was trying to turn a video game into a storyline that was comedic about people playing the game and various different escapades. But it needs somebody to animate something like that. A guy sat with a sniper's rifle going, where's my notebook? Let's work out how much refraction there is. 7/6 of the radius. Okay, got that in. How much do I need to account for Coriolis effect? And then you just hear crunch, slip, as this person gets their neck broken and their throat slit while they're calculating it.
Well, if you refracted the horizon, a sextant would be useless too.
Yeah, I said that. Triangulation also requires a flat Earth, and you can't acquire anything if everything's not in the position that you say it is because of terrestrial refraction, which applies always.
Yeah, quite a dilemma.
Well, over the past week, I was making 600-yard shots with a 308 without any adjustments whatsoever.
Just look.
What, you didn't aim it slightly left or right depending on your orientation?
No.
And always a little down, right? You have to always aim a little up because the bullet might actually drop during the pathway. But in reality, like, the object you're aiming at is even further down. So you should practically always aim more down the further away the thing you're aiming at is, according to the globe.
I'm pretty sure Adam's car is based on a 308. It's just a little compact French sedan, right?
Yeah, right.
I was
Wait, hold
about
on.
to say the same thing. For us English over here, we don't have access. Like, I saw you with the bow and arrow, which didn't excite me. But when you were saying I'm off to take out some proper guns, so what was it, like? Assault rifle or sniper or what, John?
Which one? It was a bunch of different rifles, a bunch of different pistols. Went to pistol range, rifle range, but the archery range was hands down my favorite. So, what's your question?
I love archery.
Yeah, me too.
I was saying,
So
I'm from Nottingham.
They had a rack of weapons.
Oh, sorry, John.
They had a rack of weapons at each range. So there was multiple, at least 6 different weapons at each range.
Sounds cool.
So which one you want to talk about?
Your bolt action 308. Talk about that. What was the make?
Bolt action 308. Yeah, it hurls elephants downrange, man. It'll reach out and touch you from long distance.
I have one.
Yeah. It'll reach out and touch your shoulder too. Here's a bit of advice. Don't schedule the skeet range after the rifle range. Just a pro tip.
Thanks for shouldering it, John.
Yeah, right. That was a little bit of a mistake on my part.
Okay, makes sense. Because the rifles make a lot more impact, right?
And I didn't to the instructors. They had instructors. They're not instructors. They're like guides that are in charge of the range. I didn't start talking about any of that stuff because I know what they would do. They'd just laugh. Coriolis, and I didn't bring it up.
Oh, you're feeling some guilt?
Dude,
me?
In
Wait,
reality,
you've got your excuses lined up before you even mentioned that this had even occurred. Nobody had said that you should have been talking to them about Coriolis, but you've got your excuses lined up. So, what gives?
No,
come on, guys.
He's anticipating the next question in advance.
Flat Earth confessional. Go on.
Yeah, but in reality, at a shooting range and professional people that are at shooting ranges, they all know it's about intuition. You don't have to calculate anything in your head because things are not really in their spot. It's all intuitive. You just know, okay, bullets drop a little over distance. You might have to account for wind. That's it. It's all intuition. You don't calculate deviation because things are not in their place.
I was just in someone's trophy room a couple of weeks ago, and he goes to Africa on big games, big game trips, and their tours, and they're part of a preserve, I guess, and they could only shoot a certain kind at a certain time, and so it's all to where that animal species can survive. So just in case anyone's worried. Anyway, he showed me his kills. He has them mounted, and they're beautiful, from the hedgehog to all kinds of, bigger type of game. And he had a zebra pelt over his pool table as well. So I asked him, I said, when you shoot, what do you do for adjustment? He says, well, we shoot, probably couple of 100 yards, maybe a little bit more, and pretty much the round that we're using and the velocity it's going, you just aim where the guy tells you to aim on that specific animal so that you can kill it on the first shot, or try to. So he says, yeah, maybe for long distance you have to account for how high you should hold it because of the velocity dropping on the bullet, but for most of ours we just aim right where we're supposed to and shoot it, and it goes straight.
Did I hear hedgehog?
Yeah.
I was artillery.
I just
and
did you pay for that trip? Hedgehog.
Is there another name for it?
Is it rare there?
That's like
hedgehog's rare.
Well, I was one in my garden last night. As in a tiny little guinea.
No, it's not a guinea pig. It's that big one, that boar looking. It's a big old boar.
Oh, warthog. Like
warthog.
You mean porcupine?
No, not porcupine. The warthog. I made the mistake by calling it a hedgehog.
Original pig, a wild pig.
Oh,
right?
With tusks, right?
Yes.
A wild
the
boar.
huge mouth.
Wild boar. Yeah, they're big.
Yeah.
They can kill you.
Yeah. I've hit one of them.
Don't get them pissed off.
They are huge. Huge. Scary. They run around the fields in the house in Italy. You know what I mean? You have to have fences to stop them coming in your garden. But first year, they dug up my bloody around the pool, and so they're huge, like Great Dane size things, but just, yeah, scary as hell, mate. When we've hit one with a car, and you just see them dashing around through the olive fields and stuff, and they scary as hell.
They have huge heads. It's like wild boars. Like their head size is unusually large, right? So it's like almost a head on legs, but they can just grow so big. It's freaky.
Tasty though, Arwen. Really tasty.
So I've heard. Yeah.
Cingale, it's called. Yeah.
I don't eat pork though.
It's not pork. It's cingale.
Bacon.
No, same genes.
Bacon. No bacon.
Nope.
He doesn't know what he's missing.
I'm telling you.
I do. I did eat bacon when I was a kid. I know what it tastes like.
Jeez.
If you ate bacon as a kid, that story I need to vet. There's no way you could eat bacon as a kid and not like it.
It's called discipline.
Dang it.
It's called denial.
Discipline implies you still like it. You choose not to eat it.
That's correct.
Have you had bacon wrapped dates?
If you don't eat it for a long time, then the threshold for getting to used to it becomes pretty big, though. So I don't really like it anymore that much. But I remember, like, whoa, when I did just chose to eat it, yeah, it's like, oh, bacon, I want the bacon. I remember that.
If you have sweet dates wrapped in bacon, and oh my gosh, there's nothing.
I don't go there anymore, 10th. I really don't.
Anyone on this panel has had bacon wrapped dates?
It's like talking cocktails to an alcoholic now, isn't it?
No, for me,
no,
it's chicken and beef only for me.
No wonder you cry foul all the time.
I eat more beef than chicken.
I step away for a second, and we stop talking about guns, and now we're talking about food.
Look, we were talking about Ferraris at one stage. I'm not happy about any of this.
We finally linked it to bacon, though.
Dude, this is everything that's important.
I was going to mention something about artillery. and after y'all got done talking about guns, but
Artillery. That's one of those fancy cakes, right?
Minimum range for aiming with like large destroyer class, like artillery. Like how far can they actually shoot?
with
Are
the
you planning on buying
howitzer,
one?
with the howitzer, I know it was 13 miles. Was the longest shot I know of someone making personally. So, if Earth Curve and Coriolis was thrown in there, they must have been aiming like way the hell off.
Yeah, I thought so. I've heard that the modern guns and like even anti-missile lasers and shit, like they go very far. Like even beyond that. Not sure.
That far? Wow.
It's because the detection has just improved so much, right? Detection range has improved dramatically in the military industry. You just detect things so far away if you just know how to properly plan the trajectory for a counter strike to like a missile coming in at the distance. Like, yeah, you could just get things at incredible distance.
You guys know the Sea Sparrow proof, right?
Yep, I was thinking about that. But I was going to say, the ballers are guilty of begging the question. And flat earthers just enjoy food and we bacon the question.
That's terrible.
That
didn't have any sizzle.
No bacon here. No bacon here. Jews and Muslims don't like it.
Well, they don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, we don't want the Jews to get salty.
It's really because pigs just eat everything. Like, pigs are ferocious, they'll eat everything, and that's just considered unclean.
I run into pigs everywhere I went. They're all in the wood line. They scared the Jesus out of you. So Hawaii, they got pigs. Germany, there's pigs everywhere. Louisiana, pigs. Pigs, there's pigs. We're tripping over pigs.
But that's because they're so easy to maintain because they literally eat everything. And they can like handle eating everything, right? They don't just get sick when they eat everything. That's the thing about them. They're so easy to maintain.
And they'll go feral in a day.
It's great to run into them in the wood line at night. I got lots of stories, boy.
Just you've been away, Huey, while Brian's Logic's been talking about gas behavior. Have you caught up with any of that?
Gas behavior? I thought we were talking about pigs.
Where?
They pass gas.
It didn't transition well, but go on.
Pigs produce methane, for sure.
Also, how well do you know your heliocentric rhetoric? In terms of how, I think it's in a brief history of time, describing how you could how the universe could potentially be folded upon itself, and then a wormhole could link the two layers, and that would ultimately result in you being able to travel great distances in a short period.
Brief history of time. Is that Paul Davies or Hawkins?
Hawkins.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I said in that Crocker horse shit that it was a wormhole, and Arwen agrees, but he says that it doesn't adjust. It doesn't have any effect on time. In other words, if you travel through a wormhole, it doesn't actually affect time. And I can't remember to go back and look, or wouldn't know where to begin to look, to be honest. But there we go. Do you know?
Yes, I know.
I don't go into an imagination land except for, are you talking about that thing like on Contact?
No, wormholes in sci-fi mentionings in general, right? Wormholes are always associated with bridging space distances by warping space, but not time, right? Because time rarely gets mentioned during wormholes, even though originally it probably would have been associated with it, but it's kind of been separated within the science fiction lore. So every time it's like, oh, wormhole, that means a bridge in space. You just go that small distance and bend space to get there.
Space-time.
The paper folding trick and all that. But
Bend
it's
space-time.
never,
Bend
time is never
space-time.
related.
Space-time. It's not just space.
You can't have space without time in their fairy tale, though.
Exactly. That's exactly what I
No,
thought.
but that's not part of that specific trick lore.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
That's
Yeah,
why
it
it
is.
gets a separate name. The space-time continuum.
Space-time.
Yeah, but that's the space-time continuum. That's like a Star Trek thing
It's
when
inherent.
specifically time
Stop.
gets involved.
It's inherent. It's one of the dimensions in that fairy tale.
Yep. But look, the fairy tale is not as consistent as you would think it is.
No shit.
Yeah, good one.
Well, since it's a fairy tale, Arwen's going to get his 2 cents in there.
That's just the difference between space-time continuum alterations in which time gets warped. And you can suddenly jump to another time and all that weird sci-fi, and a wormhole where literally only the space gets involved. It's only space. It's just from one point to another. There's no suggested time alteration. It doesn't get involved.
Are we chatting sci-fi now? Really?
Why are we off base?
How do Arvin? How do you know that is not involved time in that wormhole?
Well, do you know any sci-fi story in which a wormhole gets mentioned and then they remind you, oh, time will be bent? No, they might.
Yeah,
hold on.
They
They might say, oh, there is a risk that you could end up in another time as a theoretical concept. They'll definitely forward that.
Citation. Let me give you one.
Okay.
Go on then.
So Star Trek, yeah. There's 2 types, exactly what you said, in terms of wormholes. You've got your standard one where there is no time loop and makes it impossible for them to get back, yeah. And then there are plenty of other ones like Doctor Who, where you can jump and travel in time through the continuum. That's what a TARDIS does. You can manipulate all the time you want, or just all the matter you want, or a bit of both.
Can I give you the Red Dwarf
Yeah, but the
example?
TARDIS is special, though. The TARDIS is a special thing.
Hold on. Not the TARDIS. Hold on. The example I've got is Red Dwarf. So there's an episode called Backwards, and they travel through a wormhole, and they travel to a point in time where the universe has started to contract. So again, I think this is Hawkins. Most of stuff from Red Dwarf is from Hawkins, but he speculated that there was a period after the Big Bang where obviously everything's expanding out, that it'll run out of energy and then run in reverse, and he called it the Big Crunch. Well, in this episode of Red Dwarf, they've gone to a time where it's gone all the way out as far as it can and then started coming back in again, and they happen to join the timeline going backwards a point, relatively roughly to the time period of the, when it's being filmed. It ended up being in the 80s or 90s or something like that. But the point is that in that narrative, they're 3 million years into deep space and managed to go through a wormhole and end up at further into the future, but it happens to have then been at the point where time's gone backwards, so it's rolled back to a point that they jump into the timeline. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Another one, Narnia. Narnia has a weird both matter dimensional shift, and it then has a reverse time shift when you come back the other way to erase time, both for matter and the timeline itself. Then you've got all the stuff where you've got just time portals where you can go through one thing and go back X amount of years, like some of the dinosaur sci-fi series you'll get, where you go back, literally just back through time. Doctor Who, another one that has plenty of time portals. Doctor Who and the Invasion of the Dinosaurs, they're exactly that. They're temporal ports that open up, but the dinosaurs that are coming through are from the same bit of land millions of years ago, not anything else.
Oh, Isn't there one
Wasn't
in?
there a show
Isn't there one
called
in Avengers?
Stargate?
Hold on, isn't there a one in Avengers? Can I just give props to Adam also? Because he basically turned the wardrobe in Lion the Witch and the wardrobe into a wormhole in space time. I think that deserves props.
Like,
Yeah, sounds about right.
Wasn't there a show called Stargate?
That's
Yeah,
a
they're-
Stargate.
Yeah, but
Oh, shut
there
up,
was
10.
no time influence. The Stargate was all about wormholes and non-time influences.
Yeah, they fit your
Everything was
description,
linear.
Stargate is.
Man-made. What are you talking about? God, don't you know the difference between a bullshit made-up
Not
natural phenomenon and a man-made
it was
one?
aliens. It was aliens, Nathan. It wasn't man-made. Aliens made it.
Do
Man-made
we
and
have to
alien
naturally
made.
occurring wormholes here in sci-fi, or just
They just
we
want that
are
to be
allowed man-made? Surely.
predictive
I know
programming,
that's
isn't it?
science.
Stuff that they're going to tell you in the rhetoric that's going to come out from NASA is going to be based on these paradigms from Einstein or Hawkins or whoever, right? Well, if your narrative is taking its cues from those books and from that literature, it ends up, without anybody intending it, just becoming predictive programming. In other words, it's self-perpetuating predictive programming. If you brainwash the kid from birth to understand that they're on a sphere, and they want to make their sci-fi narrative about space seem more realistic, where do you go? Well, you go to the religious rhetoric of space and its stories, and you parallel them perfectly into your own narrative, and then you've got everything you need to seem realistic in the paradigm that everyone thinks they're in, that's heliocentrism, along with your fictional story. And at no point will the author recognise that both his story in fiction, that would be science fiction, note the word science in there, well, he won't ever recognise that his science fiction and what he thinks is real life, when he goes to Stephen Hawking's books, he won't recognise that that's not real life either. In fact, quite the contrary, he's going to those books to write it into his narrative for his film or TV show to make it more realistic. And what's more realistic in this instance? More realistic is more like you think the world is in reality. That realistic. Because nobody's going to space, nobody's experiencing Star Wars, nobody's experiencing space-time bending. None of these concepts that are going to be derived in the sci-fi version have anything to do with reality. But they're pulling from what is told to us as reality for their sci-fi narratives. So it just goes round and round in circles. Maybe that's why we are where we are. You know, you just drop a little bit of indoctrination in and then it just manages to self-perpetuate just by pure chance. I doubt it, given the...
Just because something is not technically real doesn't mean that it won't be virtually real to people's imagination.
It is. That's my point.
The imagining is quite consistent, actually, with every person. People come up with the same things according to the same patterns.
And why? But that's because they're exposed to the same things. So did I know when I was watching Red Dwarf as a kid that it was based on a brief history of time? No. I only found that out much, much, much later. But by then, I'd already got a lot of the concepts of heliocentrism straight from science fiction, and they were accurate. In other words, they were describing these conceptual notions of travelling through wormholes in this example very accurately. Surprisingly accurately. The only bit that was woven in was the sitcom narrative about the characters. But the actual story of travelling through space was based on the stories of space from their Bible.
Right. Red Dwarf was made by nerds that really knew their traits. Right? They really knew the space-time. They really knew all the science that was suggested at the time, and they put it all in there.
Yeah, so point being then, if you are a nerd like both me and Nathan were with regards to dwarfs, then just by watching the program time after time, suddenly you've got all of this knowledge that is kind of subconscious in terms of your understanding of space-time bending. Yeah, what it all means. It's all then kind of pre-programmed in there. You might not know it. Yeah, but it's already being drilled into you in the form of comedy, but to the point that actually your understanding of the world is shaped in such a way that it's plausible that the cat can go for a pee in backwards world and you see a very surprised face. And that's understood from the physics, the fundamental physics for a nerd. But that's just feeding in. It's realizing Einsteinian ways without you even realizing it. You accept that reality, that first time could run backwards like that, because that's how things work. So all we've got to do is turn it backwards, like is pointed out at the end of time and Stephen Hawking says, so it all makes sense. But you've suddenly got all of that in your noggin.
They also dropped in. So just one more thing about,
just
one more thing about Red Dwarf. They dropped in subtle hints that also were in line with what we discuss. So there's one point where one of the characters is taking an exam to try and outrank his only surviving shipmate, and he's taking the exam, and the guy who's an engineer asks him, "What's Boyle's law?" And the answer he gets is, "Don't eat greasy food." And then he explains to him that he's not taking the engineering exam, he's taking the chef's exam. It doesn't matter what he's going to be, he's going to outrank him, regardless of the fact that the guy's in engineering. And he'll be a chef. He'll still outrank him, so who cares what he's learning? But at the time, they're talking about Boyle's law. Well, what's Boyle's law got to do with space vacuums that they're travelling through? Why would you need to know Boyle's law? Well, you need to calculate the pressure of the ship based on its volume, potentially. Well, that directly relates to the place that they're travelling to, Boyle's law. It often gets referenced. I tend to stick to the second law of thermodynamics, but QE often references Boyle's law and Avogadro's law and various other gas laws that are going to dictate how our world, the one we actually stand on, as opposed to the fake narrative of a sky vacuum with a giant mining ship in it, how that world actually behaves.
I was going to say, now I know why we were talking about bacon, because I've just linked space-time to bacon. Wormholes. Wherever there are wormholes, there are picks.
Very good.
That's worse at best.
What link with sausages?
I don't get it. Share it with us, Deathman.
Well, I was at a golf tournament once up north, and one of the greens was almost all ripped up. And I said, "What's going on here?" I mean, it just big patches of sod just turned over. And they said, "Well, the hogs that run wild up in the hills, they come here and they dig up the turf to get the worms." And so they had a hunter there, and these hogs were huge, something like 300 plus pounds. And they were just ruining the golf course looking for worms.
Can I be geeky? Because I didn't know they meant. I do remember the bit, actually, Nathan, in terms of rumor in it, just going to outrank him so we can boss him, the Lister, so he can boss rumor around, isn't it? It's going to take the cooks. I didn't spot the Boyle's law, but it is so pertinent. We often state PV equals NLT. Boyle's law is it's a lot simpler than that, isn't it? It's that whatever pressure you've got, that's going to be inversely proportional to the volume, i.e. the bigger the volume, the no pressure. It's describing space and how it would work. And isn't there the vacuum lock at the beginning? How do they all die, isn't it, because of that?
No,
they get
not
put
exactly.
in stasis, don't they?
No, he fails to seal a drive plate, and as a result, they all get radiation poisoning. So as a result of the radiation poisoning, one of the characters, the Dave Lister character, has been punished because he put hallucinogenic mushrooms in his roommate's breakfast, causing him to have a massive hallucinogenic fit. So he got put in what's called suspended animation. So he's suspended in time whilst this radiation leak occurs and kills off everybody. And the only person that the computer decides is most appropriate to bring back is the very same roommate he gave the hallucinogenic mushrooms to. So he was stuck in suspended animation.
I knew he was sealed up. I knew it was sealed up. It's radiation, not just...
Yeah, it's a drive plate. He didn't fix the drive plate, and he blames the character in suspended animation because he said, look, if you hadn't have put those mushrooms in and got punished and gone into suspended animation, I'd have had some help fixing the drive plate, and we wouldn't have all got killed.
Yeah, it couldn't have been pressure, could it? Because how else would the
cat have been able to evolve in the lower decks. So,
well, he was sealed. So because he was in the cargo hold, that was sealed before the radiation got down there. So Lister broke into the cargo hold because he was originally being punished for having the cat, and he picks up the cat on Ganymede, which is one of, I think it's Jupiter's moons or Saturn's moons, I forget which. But when they're out at Ganymede, as you do, he goes to a bar and finds this cat and buys the cat, brings it on board, unquarantined. But then the captain says, you know, you've got to give me the cat. And he says, what are you going to do to the cat? He says, I'm going to give it to the laboratory and they're going to run some tests on it. He says, well, what kind of tests? He goes, we're going to take the cat apart. He says, will you put it back together again afterwards? He goes, no, the cat will be dead. So he locks it in the cargo hold so the captain can't have it.
I'll take my hat off. Bigger geek than me, Nate. That's
Yeah, you guys were really into space flicks.
Oh, I was much more into Doctor Who, mate. I'll tell you, that's why I could pull out. That was a John Pertwee example. I was completely into sci-fi because it was a way of.
I'm still.
Yeah.
You remember cats only surviving?
But now we know that's the difference. Now we know what is real, what isn't.
What was Cat's only surviving companion? A character that they very quickly kill off in the first series. But Cat also had a surviving companion. Can you remember who that was?
Old cat priest in it.
Correct. An imitation of a Christian priest.
Yeah. Because of course their god is Lister, isn't it? Because he's the one that saves them. Yeah.
Cloister the stupid, who was frozen in time. But they got this whole resurrection story about Cloister the stupid, who is frozen in time and will come back to save us all, i.e., like Jesus coming back, which is now, right? A lot of people think it's end times. Maybe we'll have Cloister the stupid return.
Back through.
That's an interesting picture that's up on your screen right now, Nathan, as you talk about this.
What, me?
Jesus is coming back right now through all of us, right? He told us, you will move beyond me even, right? So he's just asking you to follow in his footsteps to realize what he knew and what he was trying to share.
That's not the coming back we're talking about here. We're talking about the end times, that's Nathan referenced.
It's the apocalypse. It's the awakening.
No, the apocalypse is going to be, yeah, it's going to be awakening, but not the kind of awakening you think.
That's what apocalypse means.
Yeah, I know, but the context, what is it?
It's we are it. We are the awakening.
So you're right. So we're at the end times. So they're going to have a mark, and you can't buy or sell without it. And then all the judgments of God will come down. Yeah, that's the way the Bible says.
We will have our answer within the awakening.
We already have the answer. He is the answer. He says he's the way, truth, and life. We're talking about judgment. The time is running out.
No, it isn't.
I could be wrong. I don't.
That's fine.
When I say there are people who think this, when I say there's people who think that it's end times, I could be wrong about that.
Look, everyone could read the Bible and come up with a private interpretation. We just know God's going to get his way at the end.
The only thing that's running to an end is
Eli. Hello.
Option.
How do you know the validity of the Bible?
The only thing that's running to an end is the option to not awaken. Okay, that's what that means.
So long as you don't take the Bible to interpret that's what the Bible is saying, because that's not what it is saying. You don't have to argue about what it is saying. It says what it says, but you can believe what you want to. Just like people who believe in the scripture can believe what they want to. No need to argue over it. Let's slow it down.
What did Jesus say when he was asked that question? That even he didn't know when that time would be. So why do we?
Didn't he say don't be deceived?
We know we're awakening.
Well, hold up, Arwin, I'm talking. Sorry. Why do we now, arrogant man, because we look around and say it's wank, go, oh, definitely means it must be now. Even Jesus said,
I don't know. It's not for him to decide. It wasn't for his.
Adam, are you a
when he
Christian,
was
Adam?
born. No, I'm not. Not in the sense that
So-
a Christian. I
okay,
I
so
would
you're not
say
a Christian.
Let me finish. I would say I am a Christian by my definition. Yeah, I follow the path of Christ. I think most evangelical Christians would take opposition to my viewpoint and how I view the teachings of Christ, and would say, in a
That's okay,
non-Christian
that's
way,
good.
I'm not a Christian. Yeah.
Did you want to pipe up Noah? Is it Noah 808? Boom, boom, boom.
Yo, yeah. So how do we know the validity of the Bible? Like, how do we know it's not just a Roman, like story to keep people from revolting, or like a Greek story? Because like, there's a lot of research that says that the Greeks created Hebrew, and there was no Hebrew people before the Greeks.
Preserved by God's providence.
Hold on. Who wants to answer that?
Yeah, just quickly, because you can rebut this all day. So accept it or don't accept it. It doesn't matter. Even if it was, right, its purpose is to connect you with the gift that Christ gave you, which is spirit. So read it, right? And spirit will guide you enough for you to not really have to worry too much about it. Yeah. Listen to what resonates in you from the spirit. Yeah. Don't, yeah, for your own personal development. You want to go and analyze it historically. Yeah. That still shouldn't weaken when you're communing with God, the message you get.
The kind of do as thou wilt sort of thing.
No,
I can pick it back.
Right.
Can I propose something?
Well, you just heard me say it.
Look, hold on. Look, I completely ruined Adam's point, so I'm going to let him respond to what I said because I was gone.
Well, no, like I say, I read the Bible. I don't hold it as the given word of God. I think I could probably be the most critical. I was last night. I spent 2 hours, as going through the differences between Jesus, John the Baptist, and Paul's teachings. Well, the two I can't say the word apocryphal ways that John the Baptist and Paul view things, and the teachings that it relates to what Arwen's saying. The teachings that if you listen to Jesus, they're all about the seed and sowing. Well, seed and sowing is about growth and the kingdom growing through. So Jesus isn't very end times. He's always talking about the kingdom emerging through man. So there's a million ways. I don't think I'm ever going to get to the correct doctrine, but what I do have is the gift from Christ of spirit. So I can read these things. I can read the Quran, and I can still, listen to God. And that's the gift that the Bible gives to me. However you want to then attack it as a historical document, which is separate.
Okay.
All of that.
Okay, hold on. Pope, did you want to respond to that?
There wasn't Pope that asked the question. Could he say the question again, please?
Oh, it was Noah. My bad.
Are you asking me?
Yes,
yeah?
I think he is.
For a question?
He's saying, can you?
Yeah, my question is like, how do we know that the book wasn't written as like a way to control? Like, how do we know that since the Greeks created Hebrew, how do we know they didn't create the Old Testament as like a slave doctrine for their Hebrew slaves? And then how do we know that when the Romans conquered the Greeks, they didn't just create the New Testament as a new slave doctrine? Because
we have the Christian God of logic. Logical inference implies that you can't
One
know
at a time.
things.
Hold on.
Oh my God.
One at a time. Pope jumped into answering. Just let him. Go ahead, Pope.
Well, I think that the Christian God of logic, you can directly observe an inference from which everything relies on certain premises.
Sin get in before me?
Logical premise.
I thought QE was going
Jesus
next.
Christ.
Yeah,
why don't you be a crybaby?
Just let him
Go ahead.
finish. I'll go to you after QE. Promise.
Well, I'm just saying that the logical premise of it, logic in and of itself gives you the premise from which certain things can be true. If God is true and he's the fundamental precondition of all facts, you can safely assert that something has to be absolutely true for you to determine anything else.
Right. But how do you know that the Bible has to be absolutely true? How do you know? Because there's been many.
Because it's the only coherent religion of the
There's been
rest.
many different translations over time, and many different like arguments, and many additions and taking out of the books. So like, if this was indeed the creator of the universe or this realm or world, if he created that, why would he give us a book that keeps changing over time? Why wouldn't he just, create some unfallible tablet? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense that
Okay, hold on. Before chaos descends. Hold on. Hello, Kiwi, you're next in line. Go ahead.
Yeah, first, I'd like to be. I was going to bring this up before in a different subject, but when you speak, try to be as concise as possible, right? In your question and your answers. Don't go on and on and on and on, right? Even if your response, your question or answer is substantive, right? As soon as I hear somebody keep going on and on and on, not being concise, a weathered eye raises. And I think it's bullshit. So please try to be concise, ask your questions, and give your answers in a concise fashion. And the less words as possible. Is that too much to ask?
Okay. Eli, before you do answer, Eli, go ahead.
No, I wasn't done.
My bad. I thought that was your concise. Oh, my bad.
This is John we're talking about.
I just had to get that out of the way. We'll talk more about that as the days go forward. His question is, how do you know it's just not man's creation rather than the creators? Essentially, besides all the other created Roman bullshit, right? Essentially. So my statement to that is prophecy. That's how you know. I mean, there's a lot of, I could go into other different aspects that would show you, but if I had to be concise and say prophecy. Good.
After Eli, then.
Okay.
That's it.
Can't you write prophecy along the way, though? It only takes a few generations, and then you can have prophecy written for that.
No, you can't. Not in these certain prophecies that I have. No.
Can I hear some prophecies?
It's not just one.
Hold on. Eli's been waiting patiently for about 10 minutes.
Thank you. Well, my answer to that is a question, actually. Which one of the 10 commandments would you like to do away with? If we were just
I'm not saying that
on the 10.
I'm not saying the 10 commandments are a bad idea.
Don't dodge, because I don't understand when you say, how do we know that it's not a doctrine to enslave people? I don't care what people have used it and interpreted it for. When I read it, I know what it's saying. So which one of those should I not do? Which one is a good idea to throw in the trash bin? All right, there's your answer. I'm done.
Can I give a little fact here? Just a short tidbit that might be important.
You can. Hold on. Unless Stacy, was it Stacy?
Well, and Elijah knows I love his perspectives and everything, but I don't think that was the question. And in general, I think I agree. The 10 Commandments are wonderful. We can go down that path and everything. That I don't disagree, right? But at the same time, when we're talking about proving things of reality, I think that's where we're at. Not necessarily that there isn't something going on. There's creation. There's a higher power. I think a lot of us believe that. But when we're trying to dictate who, what, that's a little bit tricky right there, because we've been lied to. We all know and hear about our history and our past. So yeah, it's tricky. And I don't want to go down the path of saying, I know for a fact that I could tell you who it is. I can only give you my journey and my spirituality. That's it.
Okay. Hold on. Everyone else, hold on. 10th man next, please. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, there's many caveats to this, but the most important is the Bible is not one book. It's not one author. It's over 40 different human authors that were inspired by the Holy Spirit. It's over 66 books. It spans
48, by the way.
What?
Say again, Stacey?
Anyway, it's 66 books in the canon of the Bible. It's over 40 authors, thousands of years apart from each other. QE said the main one, which denotes God's involved, is prophecy. But, all you got to do is go to the Smithsonian and ask them what book they use for archaeology, and they always found it to be true. It's the Bible. I've gone to Israel twice because I wanted to see the Holy Land, and after reading the scripture for many, many years and then actually being in Israel and being on the Mount of Olives and looking across there at the Temple Mount and seeing the Kidron Valley, seeing the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, the whole Bible just became multicolor alive to me. I mean, from peoples, places, languages, metallurgy, in every way, shape, or form. This is a book of history that God has used, showing how he's dealing with mankind through a chosen people, that he was going to reach the world because of the fall of Adam and Eve. Now, if you want to read it and come to your own conclusion, you can. Or if you want to read it and ask the Spirit of God to help you interpret it, then that's when you're going to get the interpretation, because the spiritual knowledge that comes from the Bible is not for natural man. And so I don't argue with people who want to say the Bible says this or that. I just say, show me the verse. And then we'll go over it and we'll see what it says.
Put me back in the queue. Sorry, just put me back in the queue.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Eli.
Wait.
Go ahead, Eli.
But Arwen was first. I don't want to do that.
Oh, did Arwen want to get? I didn't realize. Sorry, Arwen.
I just want to get a quick entry. I do agree with 10th Man. Like, I think that whatever exactly happened, enough actually happened of things in the Bible to reflect upon history, right? That doesn't mean it's like the only time anything like this ever happened. It's just one of the most well-recorded things that display this effect within history, right? It's the most well-recorded thing, and everything, or almost everything, just reflects through history and recorded history like, yeah, that actually happened.
No, it didn't.
And that is kind of unique about the Bible.
I think Adam's trying to get a word in, then Pope and Eli's in the queue.
But both those points are the reason that I do bother to keep researching and reading and listening to scholars on the Gospels and history. And you have to remember that most of the history of that time is just from Josephus Flavius, or Flavius Josephus, whichever way you want to put it. Everything is referenced to that. And that's the weird thing about the life of Christ. It's everywhere, but it's not in history. It's not in Flavius. You can get a person you think could be this person, yeah, but actually somehow they've written this stuff out of history. That's the most miraculous thing, that this is all there. We all know it. We all assume it, but it's not there. They've purposefully hidden it and removed what happened. They had to, yeah? But that's where your Roman conspiracy comes in. But actually, no, within history, it isn't there. And that's more of an indication of the truth to me, how it's been totally removed, than supported historical documents are always subject to bias anyway. Do you know what I mean? But the simple fact that it's not there, it has lends so much credence, and that to me, is kind of the counter opposite. But I'm still saying it's true. But do you get me? Actually, there's very little there.
Well, maybe if you're going to look at it from that perspective, then maybe it's an echo of something else. But the thing about the entire story is that Jesus just hits on this frequency of doing things that is so pure, that is so rounded, so well thought out. Like, you can have endless discussions to try and unseat it, to try and find some kind of weakness, and it's just really difficult. It's really difficult because the implications of everything he said, whether he actually was a person in that time saying it, or an echo of another person or entity in the past that have said that, right? It's very hard to tell. Just the quality of the messages of Jesus are so profound. It almost, to me personally, it doesn't matter anymore whether he really was a person doing that. The message is the answer.
Eli, did you want to add your two pennyworth?
Yes. So his question was, how do we know that the word wasn't written to enslave people? That's the gist that I got from his question. So my response to that is a question: where did God instruct people to enslave other people? So I'm asking you why your question is valid. Have you considered it? Is it based on what? Yeah.
I think that's to you, Noah.
Okay, so there's a couple different ones. I think the prophecy would be the most evidence you could show me in response. But I'll go into the other one, like saying, oh, the 10 Commandments, look at them. Which one do you want to get rid of? Well, you could. Men can come up with a lot of good ideas. What's to say a man didn't come up with the 10 Commandments? Is it that far of a stretch?
I'm speaking to the
imagination
bad
think
idea
someone-
that where does it say to do bad things? That's my only question.
Are you the person that asked for the 10 Commandments? Sorry, there's like
because
one box.
because
that
I
all
was
these words are
wondering
coming from.
because you said it be used to enslave or whatever. So I'm saying, okay, where is it in the
So to
scripture
tell
that
these-
that
Okay, can I
is your
speak?
question erroneous?
So-
is
Hold
what
on,
I'm
Eli.
asking.
Eli.
Whoa,
he gets your
listen,
question.
you
Where does it say to do
never-
bad things? I think he gets it. Do you want to answer it, Noah?
So I'm not saying that the Bible. I'm not saying that the Bible says go and enslave people, although, like, I think it's it's like you tell them, oh, sit tight, don't revolt. Your savior is coming. Don't do anything. The savior's coming, and then people just, cross their arms, wait, and never do anything about the tyranny because they're too busy waiting for a savior that the rulers made up. Like the Hebrews weren't recorded by like some of the earlier Greeks, right? Wouldn't they be if they were marching around in the desert conquering all these people?
Wait a
Wouldn't
second.
Greeks-
We're supposed
like
to
to ask
act
the
now. We're not
question.
supposed to wait. We're supposed to act now already. A lot of people are deceived and they're waiting and doing nothing. So that's
And also, I'd like to know where
I'd
like to know where in the
Hold
Bible it
on.
says,
Hello.
"Don't
Hello.
revolt."
Hello. I want to hear what Righteous is saying. Hello.
Yeah.
Righteous, do you want to just round out your point?
Well, he created a straw man. We're not supposed to just sit on our laurels and wait. We're supposed to be actually moving and acting and doing his will on earth right now. So what he
and
said was
Exodus is
wrong.
an example of that, right? Righteous. Exodus is literally an example of them not sitting on their butts and waiting. Literally the first account of.
And if I can get just one thing across and then I'm done. And to answer this question, like faith comes by hearing. It's like faith is a choice. So seeing is not believing, believe it or not. Faith is a choice. Like everything comes down to faith. Like everything you believe right now is faith. So it's a choice. So
No,
what's
it's
the right choice?
It's
What
not
brings people
faith,
to
it's
God?
choice. It's choice.
on.
It's not
Let me-
faith.
let me-
It's
let me-
choice.
let me-
It's choice.
Can I get
I'm
something in?
saying faith and anyways, let me continue. And the thing that brings to God and what brings people to God is basically the goodness of God, right? If you read God's word and faith comes by hearing, you hear that God's word is good. And if you want to be good, that's the only way to be good, is by following God's word and his instructions.
That's all true.
So it's kind of
I
simple.
think everyone's missing his question. Listen to his question. Don't answer what you think he's asking. Answer his question.
Could I address that then? 'Cause I think he's talking about.
You can, but can you summarize the question first in terms of the
So
go ahead.
Okay, I'll summarize the question. I summarize the question. What's
ahead.
the historical validity?
Okay, hold on.
Jesus Christ.
Noah, summarize the question, then Adam respond. Go ahead, Noah.
What's the historical, like, you can't go into the book and prove it. You're gonna have to find something outside of the book to reference to the book to, right? Like, what's the historical validity that there were Israelites before a certain period when Herodotus doesn't really write about it? Like, how do we know that these people actually existed? How do we know they weren't just Egyptian?
Perfect.
How do we know that the Greeks
Okay.
didn't just come into
Okay,
Egypt?
thank you. We've got
enslave
enough.
them?
We've got enough. It's a good enough summary. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, that's a slightly different question, but
That's a slightly different question. Correct, Adam. You're slightly off from your original question, Noah.
no. I'll
Go
come
ahead,
to
Adam.
that. I just would like to address the point which I understood it got to, which was in terms of as a Christian or a follower of Christ, should we be sitting there like some passive thing because that's what doctrine teaches us? And I would refer to some of the limited stuff about the life of Christ. He's described as a rebel. Yeah, there's a number of times where his behavior is not commensurate with sometimes the saintly figure the church portrays. There were times when he stood up and did action that was necessary. He didn't justify just laying down passively. There were times when action was needed. Sometimes you got to rip a temple up. Yeah. It's not to say you should go around ripping temples up, but if that is the correct course of action, then sometimes you've got to do that. So just to address that, there's plenty in there. If you read the Bible properly and don't just listen to doctrine, that will guide you in your actions. The other point in terms of the placement of all these things, no, I don't think there's no such thing as an Israelite, even in its sense back then. Yeah, there's Judeans, which would be translated as Jews now, but they'd have never even heard of the word Jew. There were different types of Jews because basically most things was predominantly Jewish. There was Greek influence, there was Roman influence, but the majority was huge sects of different Judaism. We only know one very small part, the bit defined. Because remember that Josephus Flavius, Nix, after the sacking of the temple, gets all of the original documents. He's the one that then hands it back to the Jews. Okay? But there was all the difference. There's the people think Jesus was from Nazareth. There was no town called Nazareth back then. The only Nazareth was a Nazarene, which is a sect of Judaism. And all of these things are linked to Egyptian mythology in the longest sense from a historical perspective. So if we want to look at these things, yeah, they're there in the record. Do they match up exactly with the Judaic Christian doctrine and understanding that we give to the Bible when it was given its English language and how it was interpreted then? Does it match up exactly? No, but are those a lot of the stuff there? Yes, I think. Would they use the same words to describe them themselves back then? No. Yeah, but I think that's the difference between looking at something through the lens of history and looking at it through scripture. Scripture isn't there to teach you the historical narrative. It can be validated to show the stories occurred, but I think in a lot of the times the way stuff's written, both scripture and historical, they're written with historical narrative. So the way they describe things aren't even necessarily the way they happened, because they're there to liken to previous historical things, so to show the majesty of a person. So there's all of that in there, and that's some of the glory of the Bible. You can get all of that, but you get a strong spiritual message out of it when you read it. But simply put, yeah, the people are there, but not as we would understand it from our Sunday school Bible lessons to match the two up historically and Bible narrative, I'd say.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.